Widely above average for the time of year, particularly in the northwest where it's going to be particularly mild, but perhaps feeling just a touch cooler across the southeast under those cloudier skies. To end the day then, once again, still plenty of cloud in the northwest of Scotland. Those outbreaks of rain or drizzle starting to move slightly further inland here, but elsewhere there should be plenty of clear spells to end the day. Fairly similar across Northern Ireland, northern parts of England, perhaps some patchy cloud, but once again there should be plenty of clear spells here. Once again, that cloud likely to linger across the far south and southeast, but a few clearer spells developing across parts of Wales to end the day. Then through the course of the night, we'll see fairly similar conditions. Once again, a fair amount of low cloud, particularly across parts of England and Wales, likely to see some frost in places. But where we see those clearer skies, likely to further north, that's where it's going to turn chillier here, likely to see a few patches of frost through the early hours of Thursday. So a chilly night under clearer skies, but under that cloud staying fairly mild overnight too, particularly in the northwest. Then through Thursday, once again, lots of cloud around to start the day. Similarly, across the south and southeast, lots of low cloud, murky conditions, even some fog in places. Once again, brightening up across parts of the north, seeing plenty of sunshine here, also to the lee of high ground, and still fairly mild for the time of year. But across the south and southeast, temperatures returning to around average for the time of year. Bye-bye.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. On the M90 in Fife, the southbound exit at junction 2 for the westbound A823M at Pitreavey is partly blocked by an accident causing queues. On the M74 in Glasgow, there's a lane closed southbound after an accident between junctions 3 and 4 from Carlisle to Maryville, with queues towards and past there. On the M5 in Bristol, 2 lanes are closed northbound, along with the exit at junction 17 for the Cribbs Causeway, where a vehicle caught fire. There are long delays with queues back beyond junction 19 at Portishead and on other nearby roads where you've been diverting. On the M25 in Kent, there's a lane closed clockwise just before junction 3 for the M20 after an accident. With queues there back beyond junction 30 for the A13. Eurotunnel reporting a wait of up to an hour for passengers at Folkestone. And on the M27 in Hampshire, there's a lane closed eastbound after an accident between junctions 10 and 11 towards Fareham, causing queues. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Ironic article in The Guardian, Nick, caring about facts.
Yeah, this is Meta is ushering in a world without facts, says Nobel Peace Prize winner. And they just seem to give these Nobel Peace Prizes to anyone these days. It's Maria Ressa.
Not working.
Zuckerberg came out, and it was very bold. He said a few things. We're going to use community notes instead of fact checkers. Fact checkers in inverted commas, because it just means people pushing usually a specific viewpoint. Community notes seems to be a great system that X uses, so why not do that? I think that's great. He's going to reduce restrictions on topics like immigration and gender. Good, because I'm against censorship. He's going to push back on governments around the world that are going after American companies and pushing to censor more, which is great. He's also moving content moderation to Texas instead of California, which is banter. So now the cynical version is he's just realises we've got a new regime, it's the MAGA era, and I want to be mates with Trump, who said that I should that if I interfere with the 2024 election, he should spend the rest of his life in prison. So he did mention he might be a bit scared of that. He was involved in that in Facebook suppressing the Hunter Biden laptop scandal, and I feel that he didn't like being a part of all that from watching interviews.
And also the suppression of arguments about gender and, and sex, what is biological sex and whatnot. You get banned for saying there are two sexes.
They're on the wrong side of this, and now he's correcting. But the weird thing is the people, of course, the people who don't like this, the lefties, this person, Ressa, is saying that this is a big problem. It's an extremely dangerous time. I've seen all this from the lefties. They just call it disinformation. They're worried about this because to them it's disinformation. To other people it's information.
Yeah, and also, I mean, I think we can all agree if people think they're getting their facts just directly from Facebook, then something's horribly wrong. But we know that. The community notes thing, I think, is quite good because that sort of first-hand experience people are putting down, aren't they?
Yeah. People have loads of different views come together, and it's an aggregate, so that's why it works.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Morning, 9:30 on Wednesday, the 15th of January, live across the UK, Britain's Newsroom, with Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner.
Very sorry, the autocue is not working this morning, but we are going to bring you, let's see if we can get this scrolling. There we go. Relief for Reeves as inflation figures fall this morning. Can the Chancellor bounce back?
And the figures are stable. The markets are functioning in a normal way. So absolutely, I have confidence, of course, in the Chancellor, as does the Prime Minister.
Recovery, an uplifting update as the Princess of Wales reveals she's in remission and the new patron of the hospital, Royal Marsden, which treated her.
And a Jerry Adams payout. The man once described as the godfather of terrorism, Jerry Adams, could be compensated by the British taxpayer. We'll explain what that's all about.
So I just think the whole concept of work-life balance was invented by people who hate the work that they do.
So that's the Brewdog founder, James Watt, who's caused a stir by labelling Britain one of the least I think he said, basically said, we're the least work-orientated countries in the world. We're asking you, are we too work-shy?
And is it possible to be fat and fit? Obesity experts are throwing aside their BMI charts as it's revealed that more than 15 million Brits are being wrongly labelled overweight.
Sure, of course they are. And taking the spirit out of flying, Ryanair calls for the limit of 2 drinks at airports in a bid to curb badly behaved passengers.
And speaking of mayhem on flights, what do you make of this?
Yeah, if I hear one more remark from anybody, I will be ringing the pilots. They will be getting the police, and you'll not be having a Christmas.
I think she is brilliant. I will be ringing the police and you will not have a Christmas Eve. That's the kind of teachers we need across the country, the kind of parents we need in houses. She is fantastic. I love that. We're going to show you that clip again this morning.
Brilliant stuff.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Right, gbnews.com/your say for all of your thoughts this morning. First, the very latest news with Sophia Wensler.
Bev, Andrew, thank you. Good morning. These are your headlines from the GB Newsroom. UK inflation has unexpectedly dropped to 2.5% in December, easing pressure on the Chancellor. Economists had expected it to remain unchanged at 2.6%. It's after rising energy bills and wages have contributed to inflation ticking up again in recent months. Rachel Reeves, who has faced criticism following recent market turmoil, responded to the 2.5% figure, saying there is still more to be done and pledged to fight every day to deliver growth and improve living standards in every part of the UK. But Shadow Chancellor Mel Stride told GB News Rachel Reeves must get a grip on the economy.
I don't know about the future of Rachel Reeves. That's in the hands of the Prime Minister. But what I do know is that she's got to get a grip of this economy. You know, we've seen growth killed stone dead. We've seen a government that's taxed the living daylights out of businesses. We have seen, even though inflation's come off a little bit this morning, high inflation above target. And you put all those things together with the moves that there have been in the bond market, and you've got an economy that's in a very precarious situation. And she really needs to get a grip, particularly on how she's going to start generating growth.
Meanwhile, the Chief Secretary to the Treasury, Darren Jones, says he and the Prime Minister have complete faith in the Chancellor.
I have confidence, of course, in the Chancellor, as does the Prime Minister. She returned from China this week doing trade deals for UK businesses and gave a statement to the House of Commons yesterday. And we're getting on with the work that we were elected to do by bringing change to this country, starting with economic and political stability and, yes, having to take the tough decisions in order to clear up the mess that we inherited from the Conservative Party.
In other news now, South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol has been arrested after attempting to impose martial law. He is the first ever incumbent South Korean president to be arrested. More than 3,000 police officers arrived to detain him as Yoon submitted himself to questioning in a bid to avoid any violence. However, he claims his arrest is illegal and is now refusing to talk, according to the investigation office. He is still technically the president, as a constitutional court has to decide whether his impeachment is valid. And the government is expected to revive laws protecting free speech at universities following a backlash, according to reports. The Higher Education Freedom of Speech Act, which could have seen universities fined for failing to uphold freedom of speech, was passed under the previous Conservative government in 2023. But the Education Secretary shelved the free speech laws last July, just days before they were due to come into force in one of her first moves in government. However, it's now understood Bridget Phillipson is poised to bring back the Act in a watered-down version in the coming weeks, following widespread fury from academics. Those are the latest GB News headlines. More in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Very good morning. This is Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Bev with you until midday. Right. Obesity is in the press a lot again this morning. Now, a big issue around this is the idea of your body mass index. Do you know what your body mass index is? Well, we can probably say, looking at you, you're relatively healthy. Yep. At least physically. Can't talk about your mental state.
Oh, my mental health.
But we know, obviously, that if you are a bigger person, you are much more likely to have cancer, to have heart attacks, to have strokes, to have diabetes is the big one, of course. Now. And we are failing to deal with it as a country, are we not? And in the papers this morning are some shocking statistics that 1 in 10 children are obese when they go to school, and that rises to 22% when they leave primary school.
So that is the parents are directly responsible for that. If the child, by the time they get to primary school or infant school, is already obese, what are mum and dad shoving in that child?
10% of parents, this is also, so clearly there's an education issue here, because 10% of parents are giving children who are aged 5 to 11 the same portion size as them as adults. Would you have ever had the same portion size at 5 years old as your mum and dad?
I did when I was 10.
But the problem is, a massive issue for me is this idea of body positivity. So we've all been told, haven't we, in the last sort of 10 to 15 years, I would say, that you can be big and beautiful.
Yeah, fat and fit.
Fat and fit, which you can be big and beautiful. There's always someone for everyone, isn't there? But I can tell you, you might be beautiful on the outside, but on the inside, you've still got a fatty liver, you've still got fat around your heart. You're not well.
I know, enormous pressure on the heart. And heart disease is a big problem now in this country.
It really is. And I don't know how to talk to my teenage daughters about that, because parents were so indoctrinated about the idea that anorexia and bulimia, and they were big issues, and they are big issues, but it's so much more complicated than the way that a girl might look at herself in the mirror and think she's too fat. You know, I see a lot of teenagers in my life, and I would say that most of them would be considered now overweight.
Yeah. It's because they eat between meals.
They eat between meals, and they're having these, like, massive drinks like this. They'll get these big sugary drinks and you know, the frappe, latte, everything.
And you see them at lunchtime pouring out the schools into the takeaway shops.
Yeah. And I don't know, as a parent, how to tell my daughters it's as important to be thin for your health, not just the way you look. It's a really difficult conversation.
It's because the pendulum has swung the other way completely, hasn't it? Completely.
And that's exactly it. We had this overcorrection. There probably was a very narrow stereotype of what women should look like. Yeah. And so we quite rightly said, you don't have to be a size 8 to be beautiful. You can be beautiful and be bigger than that. Yeah. You can. But your insides are going to suffer, and therefore you might die young. So what do you think? How do we solve this? gbnews.com/your
do you agree? Can you be fat and fit? And talking of fit, how fabulous to see the Princess of Wales looking great. She's in remission. Yeah. That's terrific. She's back at the Royal Marsden, which we now know she was treated at. We know it was chemotherapy. In remission means the cancer appears. There's no sign of the cancer. It's great. And I think it's really important, Bev, that this is a young royal talking about her health, because the Queen wouldn't talk about. We still don't know why the Queen died. What was the cause of death? It's just old age, they say. The royal family has been traditionally so reluctant to talk about health. I think it's fantastic that the Princess of Wales has gone to that hospital, talked about her own issues. It will encourage other people to go in to get checked. Go and get checked, that lump. Whether you're a bloke or a woman, you need to get checked. And it's really important that she's done this because she's a great communicator.
Yeah, and cancer is on the rise, particularly amongst young people for all sorts of complicated reasons. Obesity, obviously, the Princess of Wales is never, but, you know, she's super slim, isn't she? She always has been. So you don't, it's not that always, you know, you can be incredibly unlucky, which is what she has been. And in fact, we had the news yesterday, didn't we, about screening, particularly for bowel cancer now, from the age of 50 rather than the age of 60.
So important.
Really important. So, yeah, really good news that she's in remission. I think if you are a cancer sufferer and you get that news, I can't imagine that you ever stop worrying about it. It must be so difficult.
And but she also talked about how it was not just about her, the burden on her husband, Prince William, and the children.
Yeah.
I mean, she must have had a very difficult conversation with her 3 young children, who aren't princes and princesses to her. They're the kids.
Of course they are. She's just a mum, isn't she, first and foremost, when it comes to
share with them that mum
health.
is very, very sick.
Yeah, absolutely. So we got a lot to talk about this morning, and we'd love to hear from you, gbnews.com/your say. But first of all, if you want some winter sun, here it is.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean all clear skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Storm Felix is set to affect central parts of the Mediterranean, bringing some rain, mountain snow and also strong winds. But further west, largely settled for the Canary Islands, Madeira, Portugal and also most of Spain. But towards the eastern coast, we could see some heavy showers here. The heaviest likely across Sicily and parts of Sardinia, and also likely to see some mountain snow across the highest parts of Italy and also Greece. Towards the weekend, though, largely settled and temperatures remaining around the same.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Right, up next, should terrorists get compensation? That's right, the Prime Minister's set to pay damages to Jerry Adams.
The godfather of terrorism, and that described of the IRA. This is all to do with the wretched Human Rights Act, of course it is, and this is overturning a previous ruling by the House of Lords. There we are. Thank you for this Labour government.
Yeah, right, don't go anywhere. That and a lot more. Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
We were talking earlier about the issue of Siri listening to you. Well, it's not just your own conversations being sort of harvested for data, but it's a problem with AI. So what seems to have happened yesterday is that Apple issued a alert saying that Luke Littler had won the darts before he had. I mean, imagine what would, you know, if he then gone on to lose, you know, how that would have looked. I mean, obviously, because he went on to win, at least they got the story right, but before it had happened. So what it seems to happen is that the AI farms existing stories, and what it has done, that's the alert. We can see the alert there now, and it also claiming that Brazilian tennis player Rafael Nadal had come out as gay, when actually a different Brazilian tennis player was actually mentioned in the original story. So what it does is you see that it's branded as BBC Sport. What the Apple AI system does is it farms alerts that it thinks people are getting from the source, and then summarises them into
going to be my
into one
it
alert.
Looks to me like you would assume, OK, the BBC are reporting this.
Absolutely.
So the BBC News might be saying something else.
So it could happen to any news organisation.
This has highlighted a massive issue. I mean, having editorial judgment and quality control, because if this is going on, it's just contributing to the flow of misinformation. And we know that this is a problem on social media, people reporting false things. But if it seems to come from trusted news sources, that is a massive issue in credibility. I mean, if you had something like Reuters, who's a big news provider, doing this, you could hold people accountable, you could make changes, but when it's the AI doing it, I mean, what do? You're going to have to reprogram it in some way.
And if you just lost control, if you're a news source, you've lost control of what goes out, because it basically farms it, puts your logo on it, and sends it out, even when it's nonsense.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
9:45. Britain's Newsroom, GB News.
So a bit of, you need your luck as a politician. The Chancellor's had a bit of luck because inflation has dropped slightly from 2.6 to 2.5%. She's been under huge pressure. I think she still is under huge pressure because interest rates are at, what, 28-year high? Let's talk to our political editor, Chris Hope. They'll be breathing a sigh of relief in number 11, Chris.
Yeah, somewhat. It's down. Inflation down slightly by 0.1% from November, so 2.6%. That's fueled by falling hotel costs, Bev and Andrew, and tobacco falling as well. That's good news. Borrowing costs are easing and takes the pressure off Rachel Reeves after on Monday she had a very sticky time with the Prime Minister refusing to say she'd be Chancellor until the next election. When I asked him yes or no to that question, they clarified, of course, by about 4:30 in the afternoon. But in that period, it was very uncertain, and that led to this lame duck headline in one of the tabloids yesterday. One of those lame ducks has gone. Juliet Sadiq went yesterday evening, but it does look like the pressure is now off Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, and that'll be a relief for them all and for us all, really, frankly, because it means it's more likely we might get 2 cuts in interest rates this year, easing pressure on mortgages and delivering on this promise from the government to make us all feel richer in our pockets. They've moved away from being the fastest growing economy in the G7. That's not a target in the same way as making us all feel richer in our pockets. That's more of a retail element to this politics. So good news there for the economy, and welcome good news.
So the pressure's off for now, Chris, but of course the next inflation figures, it could be going back up.
And that's the nature of it. Yeah, I mean, we have heard there's new support coming in for Ken Clarke, the former Tory Chancellor for Rachel Reeves. And then, to be fair to the government, they said they've been there for 6 months. You can't judge the performance of Rachel Reeves so soon. But companies are worried about this £40 billion tax increase back in October in the budget. They look at that national insurance increase, 2% on employers' side of national insurance. They look at the lifting of the minimum wage. They look at the new Rachel Reeves plan, Andrew Rayner plan for more rights for workers, and they worry about the red tape, the cost of employing somebody. And that's why yesterday in the chamber, Rachel Reeves couldn't rule out a budget after the March 26th OBR forecasting. Now, we've been told the government is committed to one budget a year, one fiscal event. That's in October, November, but they're saying they can't make the same commitment to one not happening in the spring and summer. So it's watch this space very much, Andrew and Bev.
All right, Chris. That's Chris Hope, our political editor.
So there's been an outcry from senior peers and IRA victims as the Prime Minister has decided to pay damages to Gerry Adams under human rights plans.
Former Sinn Féin leader set to benefit from a decision by the government to repeal some of the Troubles legislation. We're joined by the former First Minister of Northern Ireland, Dame Arlene Foster. Morning, Arlene. Dame, my jaw dropped when I saw on the front page of the Telegraph PM to pay damages to Gerry Adams. This is on a technicality, isn't it? Because he was locked up in the 1970s on suspicion of terrorism offences, but the order locking him up in prison was signed by a minister, not the Secretary of State. So a court has now ruled that imprisonment was unlawful. And now this government says he's entitled to taxpayers' compensation. How do you react to that?
Well, yes, good to see you both. I think this is a very wide-ranging issue. It's not just about Gerry Adams, although obviously that will get the headlines because he will be able now to benefit from compensation if the government goes ahead with what's called a remedial order in Parliament. But many others will be able to claim that they also were put into prison as a result of a Minister of State as opposed to the Secretary of State signing off on these documents. It's called the Cartona Principle, and Policy Exchange has done some really brilliant work on this and have published a document today which is covered in the Daily Telegraph and much wider as well, whereby they say if you're going to overturn this principle, which was actually backed unanimously in Parliament in the Troubles legislation. It was the only piece of the legislation, actually, Andrew and Bev, that wasn't controversial. Everybody backed it and said that the Supreme Court was wrong, and what we need to do is remedy this in Parliament, because Parliament is supreme. Everybody backed it, as I said, but now the government is deciding that they aren't going to go ahead with that. They're going to place a remedial order in Parliament, and as a result, Gerry Adams, and indeed many others, will be able to claim compensation. And I have to say to you both that not only is that wrong from a justice point of view, but for those victims in Northern Ireland and indeed across the UK who have been through so much and who have been overlooked by governments at best and at worst, have been kicked and abused and re-traumatised by what has happened to them since 1998, the Belfast Agreement. This is another kick to those victims, and I think it's completely unjustifiable.
Can this be blocked, Arlene? Because I mean, Labour has a huge majority, of course, I was just looking at the figures. I mean, the IRA were responsible for the death of 1,700 people. Gerry Adams, of course, denies he was part of the IRA, but he's about the only person who says he wasn't. He was, as you know, named in the House of Lords as the godfather of terrorism. So can you stop it?
Well, actually, interestingly, Andrew, there's a civil case being taken at the moment by a very brave victim who wants to prove that Gerry Adams was the leader of the IRA. That's going to come in due course, and we should keep an eye on that. But this order has to come before Parliament. There are those of us in Parliament who will certainly try and stop it. But you're right to point out Labour's huge majority. And I would ask them to look at themselves and say, you're always talking about justice, you're always talking about saving money. You're going to have to pay huge amounts of money out to people who certainly do not deserve it. These are people who were involved in terrible deeds in the 1970s and 80s, and I don't think any Labour voter would want to see money being handed out to these people.
And how many victims of the IRA have ever had substantial compensation from the taxpayer, Arlene?
Well, there are very many who haven't had compensation at all. Indeed, if you look at the Telegraph report today, there's a lady quoted in that report saying that she hasn't received any compensation, yet the people who actually caused the violence, caused the terrorism, are going to be able to benefit because of this change in the law. And I think it's absolutely wrong of government to say, oh, we said that we were going to repeal the totality of the Northern Ireland legacy legislation. They haven't actually. They've kept parts of the legislation. So why can't they keep this part of the legislation? And I think everybody would support them in doing that in Parliament. And I ask them, plead with them, not to go ahead with this remedial order, because it will cause damage in Northern Ireland. And indeed, many, many victims will feel again re-traumatised.
OK, thank you, Arlene, Dame Arlene Foster there. It's a thorny issue, that, isn't it? Because presumably this does need some legal clarification, and this is just one of those situations whereby the nuance is lost.
Yeah, but if the Secretary of State had signed the order rather than the Minister of State, he would have not a leg to stand on. So this is a technicality, and this British government is willing to give taxpayers' money to a vile monster like Gerry Adams. He was an IRA terrorist.
Yeah.
1,700 people were killed by the IRA.
You know, people at home get in touch about this. Carol says terrorists receive compensation, yet they can't compensate the WASPy women who haven't killed anyone or ruined whole lives. Says it all, this government. It's an absolute disgrace. Susie says, I can remember when Gerry Adams' voice was silenced on news broadcasts. I'd forgotten that.
Yeah, that was the Thatcher government.
Yeah. Brian says Starmer will support anyone who's an enemy of our country. Thank you, Brian. And Sandra says the same to this show. I have taken my winter fuel payment away, but they're happy to compensate the lead terrorist of the IRA. Nice one.
It is sickening. And I'm thinking of people who lost someone, somebody who died, who was murdered by the IRA, to think that Adams, who was the general, the quartermaster, is going to get taxpayers' money because he was banged up, and he was banged up for the protection of the people of Britain.
I wonder what kind of money he might be looking at. Probably significant. Right, get in touch this morning. All your messages are coming in thick and fast. GBNews.com/your say, but still to come. The uplifting royal news that the Princess of Wales is in remission from her cancer, plus are Brits work shy? Not around here. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Despite the morning rain, it'll be a nice, warm, cosy day ahead. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Quite a cloudy start for many of us, likely to see some fog in places, but it is going to brighten up across many northern areas. But in the northwest, this is where it's going to be particularly breezy. We'll also see some cloud starting to feed in here, also some outbreaks of rain and drizzle just starting to creep into the far north of Scotland. But as I say, plenty of sunshine likely across parts of Northern Ireland, Scotland, also northern parts of England and Wales. But that cloud likely to stick around across parts of the south and southeast, where it could be quite low and murky at times. Temperatures widely above average for the time of year, particularly in the northwest where it's going to be particularly mild, but perhaps feeling just a touch cooler across the southeast under those cloudier skies. To end the day then, once again, still plenty of cloud in the northwest of Scotland. Those outbreaks of rain and drizzle starting to move slightly further inland here, but elsewhere there should be plenty of clear spells to end the day. Fairly similar across Northern Ireland, northern parts of England, perhaps some patchy cloud, but once again there should be plenty of clear spells here. Once again, that cloud likely to linger across the far south and southeast, but a few clearer spells developing across parts of Wales to end the day. Then through the course of the night, we'll see fairly similar conditions. Once again, a fair amount of low cloud, particularly across parts of England and Wales, likely to see some frost in places. But where we see those clearer skies, likely to further north, that's where it's going to turn chillier here, likely to see a few patches of frost through the early hours of Thursday. So a chilly night under clearer skies, but under that cloud staying fairly mild overnight too, particularly in the northwest. Then through Thursday, once again, lots of cloud around to start the day. Similarly, across the south and southeast, lots of low cloud, murky conditions, even some fog in places. Once again, brightening up across parts of the north, seeing plenty of sunshine here, also to the lee of high ground, and still fairly mild for the time of year. But across the south and southeast, temperatures returning to around average for the time of year. Bye-bye.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding on the M90 in Fife. The southbound exit at junction 2 for the westbound A823M at Petrevie is partly blocked by an accident with queues from junction 3 at Halbeath. On the M5 in Bristol, 2 lanes are closed northbound along with the exit at junction 17 for the Cribbs Causeway, where a vehicle caught fire. There are long delays with queues from junction 19 at Portishead, and there are long delays too on other nearby roads where you've been diverting. On the M25 in Hertfordshire, the outside lanes closed clockwise just after junction 18 at Chorley Wood after an accident with 5 miles of queues, taking 20 minutes halfway back to junction 16 for the M40. On the M25 in Surrey, 2 lanes are closed clockwise just before junction 7 for the M23 after an accident with queues from junction 5 for the M26. And on the M27 in Hampshire, there's a lane closed eastbound after an accident between junctions 10 and 11 towards Fareham, causing queues.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
You could be joining the Great British Giveaway list of winners with your chance to grab a fantastic £50,000 in tax-free cash.
Hi, I'm Angela from Wigan and I won £30,000 with the Great British Giveaway. I'd say to people who want to enter or are wondering whether to enter to do it, it happens to people like me.
For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here
We do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Very good morning, 10 a.m. Wednesday, the 15th of January, live across the UK. This is Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner.
So, relief for Reeves, how long it will last. Inflation figures fall slightly this morning. Can the Chancellor and the country bounce back?
And the figures are stable, the markets are functioning in a normal way. So absolutely I have confidence, of course, in the Chancellor, as does the Prime Minister.
There, who is effectively the Deputy Chancellor.
Yeah.
A royal recovery and uplifting updates as the Princess of Wales reveals that she is in remission from her cancer and she's a new patron of the hospital which treated her.
So I just think the whole concept of work-life balance was invented by people who hate the work that they do.
That's the Brewdog founder, James Watt, who's caused quite a stir by labelling Britain one of the least work-oriented countries in the world, basically saying we're lazy.
But that is Donald Trump talking of working hard, because he is going to be in the White House from Monday morning. Inauguration plans are in full swing. Melania Trump has shared new insight into what to expect from Trump 2.0.
But this time I have everything. I have the plans, I could move in, I already packed, I already selected the furniture that needs to go in.
The important stuff.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's done much good, has it? Fat and fit, is that possible? Obesity experts are throwing aside their BMI charts as it's revealed more than 50 million Brits are being wrongly labelled overweight.
And taking the spirit out of flying, Ryanair have called for the limit of 2 drinks per person at airports in a bid to curb those who don't know when to stop. But why should the rest of us suffer?
Quite. And speaking of mayhem on flights, I think you're going to like this.
If I hear one more remark from anybody, I will be ringing the pilots. They will be getting the police, and you'll not be having a Christmas.
And it worked. Everyone on the plane was quiet. Like, oh, we're really getting told off.
Reminds you, does it remind you of some of your teachers? I bet it does.
Yeah, not anymore. Teachers
no,
don't
do that now, sadly.
No way. The parents would all be in saying, don't upset my child, you can't shout at them.
Yeah.
Isn't that where we're going wrong? gbnews.com/your say. First, the very latest news with Sophia Wensler.
Bev, Andrew, thank you. Good morning. These are your headlines from the GB Newsroom. UK inflation has unexpectedly dropped to 2.5% in December, easing pressure on the Chancellor. Economists had expected it to remain unchanged at 2.6%. It's after rising energy bills and wages have contributed to inflation ticking up again in recent months. Rachel Reeves, who has faced criticism following recent market turmoil, responded to the 2.5% figure, saying there is still more to be done and pledged to fight every day to deliver growth and improve living standards in every part of the UK. But Shadow Chancellor Mel Stride told GB News Rachel Reeves must get a grip on the economy.
I don't know about the future of Rachel Reeves. That's in the hands of the Prime Minister. But what I do know is that she's got to get a grip of this economy. You know, we've seen growth killed stone dead. We've seen a government that's taxed the living daylights out of businesses. We have seen, even though inflation's come off a little bit this morning, high inflation above target. And you put all those things together with the moves that there have been in the bond market, and you've got an economy that's in a very precarious situation, and she really needs to get a grip, particularly on how she's going to start generating growth.
Meanwhile, the Chief Secretary to the Treasury, Darren Jones, says he and the Prime Minister have complete faith in the Chancellor.
I have confidence, of course, in the Chancellor, as does the Prime Minister. She returned from China this week doing trade deals for UK businesses and gave a statement to the House of Commons yesterday. And we're getting on with the work that we were elected to do by bringing change to this country, starting with economic and political stability and, yes, having to take the tough decisions in order to clear up the mess that we inherited from the Conservative Party.
In other news now, South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol has been arrested after attempting to impose martial law. He's the first ever incumbent South Korean president to be arrested. More than 3,000 police officers arrived to detain him as Yoon submitted himself to questioning in a bid to avoid any violence. However, he claims his arrest is illegal and is now refusing to talk, according to the investigation office. He is still technically the president, as a constitutional court has to decide whether his impeachment is valid. A father accused of murdering his 14-year-old daughter by stabbing her in the heart claimed that they had been play fighting while dinner was being prepared. A court heard how 50-year-old Simon Vickers denies the murder and manslaughter of his daughter Scarlett in the kitchen of their home in Darlington on the 5th of July last year. He told police who arrived at the scene that they had been playing 1 minute and the next blood was gushing from her chest. The prosecution's case was that this was not an accident, jurors heard. Now, Gerry Adams could be in line for taxpayer-funded compensation because of Sir Keir Starmer's human rights plans, senior peers have warned. The former Sinn Féin leader is set to benefit from a decision by the government to repeal Troubles legislation. The current law blocks his claim from compensation over his detention in prison in the 1970s for suspected involvement in terrorism, but Sir Keir's plan will reverse this. It's after the Northern Irish High Court ruled that the legislation was incompatible with human rights laws. And the cost of repairing Britain's potholes has hit a record high. The AA said the total cost of fixing vehicles it attended in the UK, which had broken down because of poor road surfaces in 2024, was £579 million. And it will cost the government an estimated £16.3 billion to get the roads back on track this year. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister has hailed AI as the solution to deal with potholes.
AI isn't something locked away behind the walls of blue-chip companies. It can spot potholes quicker.
But Mr Pothole campaigner Mark Morrell told GB News he doesn't have any faith in the government.
So it's all smoke and mirrors, got no faith in them. They all want to know about it, particularly when in opposition. I mean, they like talking to me a bit more then. When they get in power, it goes very quiet. I've got no faith in them doing anything about it. But it's costing the economy, badly maintained roads, £14.4 billion a year. So, you know, on an economic model, it would pay to put that extra £3 billion in a year, because after 10 years, you'd be saving £7.2 billion. I mean, I do struggle with the people in charge in this country now to make any sensible decisions about anything.
Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now it's back to Andrew and Bev.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
10:08, this is Britain's Newsroom, live across the UK with Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner.
So, some positive news now after Prince of Wales has revealed she's in remission from cancer, and we all say that is great news.
That's right. Princess Catherine described it as a relief, and she said she has a lot to look forward to. She's also the new patron of the Royal Marsden Hospital, which treated her.
Joined now by the editor at large at Mail on Sunday, Charlotte Griffiths. Why did we all feel so upbeat after that?
I think it's, well, first of all, the remission is so important. It's that word that every cancer patient is desperate to hear. We've had quite a lot of vague sort of updates, really, from Kate. And so to know that she really did have cancer, because don't forget, they did say it was preventative at one point. So it was kind of confusing, wasn't it? So to know that she actually really did have cancer and she really is in remission.
And it was chemotherapy.
It was really upbeat, and it was proper chemotherapy. She talked about the port, you know, that goes in your... It's quite dangerous, the port, because you can get sepsis through the port. And actually, that really struck me, because my father got very ill when he had the port. And it's one of the most dangerous parts. And to know that she really had a permanent port in because she was having so much chemo was a real revelation. But it was so upbeat as well because she's so un-victim-like. It makes it really easy to support her.
Yeah.
Because every time somebody said, oh, you did a really good job looking after your children, she'd take the compliment and then she'd change the subject back to the cancer patient.
Yeah.
And let's face it, over in Montecito, we see a lot more victimhood. But when you see Kate, you really feel like she's been through hell and back, but she doesn't want sympathy. She just wants to support these people.
And so important for such a senior role to talk about her cancer treatment in this way, because it will encourage other people to go and have tests and checkups, because prevention is half the battle.
Yeah, I have to say, I've never seen such honesty from Catherine. And the other amazing thing is she's got this new confidence. I think it's because, A, she knows the subject inside and out, because, of course, she's been going through cancer for a year. And B, I think when you come out of a near-death experience, which essentially is what she had, she's just really confident now with her speaking. And that's something we didn't see in the early years of Kate. So it was really kind of good to see. She's growing into an expert in her field who genuinely, authentically wants to help people.
She has a real sort of quiet strength about her, doesn't she? So what makes her such a good royal?
Yeah, and when you looked and you talked about
the Queen had
children,
the same thing.
she did, the children and her husband. It's just like any other family, isn't it? They may be the royal family, but there are 3 children, little children, like we told how sick mummy was, and a loving husband, just like any other family. And you felt that people could relate to her in the Royal Mars, and people watching and listening to her could too.
But what really struck me, actually, was how she said she had to sneak in through the back.
That's
and
right.
I thought, unlike any other family, on top of the stress of cancer, you've had to sneak in to the back.
And it never leaked.
And it never leaked. But imagine the tension. That's an added layer of stress she had to get through.
Yeah.
You know, will I be caught going into my
Everybody knows
cancer
the Royal
treatment?
Marsden is the preeminent cancer hospital in the country.
Yeah, and how great that she's the patron.
How did that never leak?
It is incredible.
Well, I also think there was some respect from newspapers and media outlets where we just really did leave her to it, because who wants to be pictured at your absolute worst walking into cancer? I mean, that we were never going to do that. You know, despite what Meghan and Harry say about how awful the press and the media are,
that's right.
there is a huge amount of respect for medical issues.
What do you make of the fact that Meghan has postponed the launch of her new Netflix series, which is all about how to, I don't know, make hummus more interesting than traditional hummus and things like that?
She nicked all the ideas from somebody else.
Well, she's delayed it now because of the fires, because she thinks it would be insensitive. Also, let's face it, it wouldn't have got the attention that she wanted.
I know, and there's this chicken and egg thing. Did she pull it because she knew it was going to do badly, or you know, or was she breathing a sigh of relief that actually she can delay it, and because she knows it's not the best? I mean, actually knowing her, she has a lot of confidence in what she does. She probably thinks it's the best cookery show of all time. But talk about authenticity, like we saw with Catherine, versus inauthenticity. I didn't think, personally, that Meghan hugging people in LA for 15, 20 minutes was that authentic. And I know she's from LA and that she was affected by it. It just... There's something about the way she goes about these things that makes it harder to connect with her. And I mean, I feel bad for her because she, in some ways, hasn't been able to get out of this rut she's in.
And did she have to do it with the cameras in tow?
It's like, yeah, she knew her angles. Kate doesn't mind, you know, on the front page of the Mail, she's got a little bit of a wrinkly forehead. She doesn't care about that. She doesn't have to be perfect at every angle because she doesn't care. She just wants to connect with the people she's with. And I'm afraid I got the impression from Meghan that she was looking for her best angles at all time. And maybe, you know, it did help that the LA fires have delayed her cookery show.
Yeah.
Fergie, of course, has had cancer too. The King, we still don't know about the King. We don't know whether he's in remission. As far as we know, the treatment's ongoing.
I think if he's not saying he's in remission, we can take from that he probably isn't. But the mood music has always been from his camp that it's all going well, it's going really well. And he did go through that amazing Australia tour, which he came out unscathed. And some people are thinking, God, what if he has a dip when he gets back from Australia? But that hasn't come, and he's doing international...
Planning to go to Canada, isn't he?
Yeah, whereas Catherine isn't doing international engagements.
And just briefly, last minute, happy birthday to Sophie Wessex for Monday.
Yes, she's 60.
She's 60 on Monday.
She's looking quite good on it, I think.
I think she's great.
I think she'll really come into her own as the years go by. And since the Queen died, she has really stepped into that role of, you know, proper senior royal, going to really tricky events. She goes to some really difficult subject areas.
And she's one of the hardest working royals.
She works really hard. She's pretty unsung, actually. I mean, is she on the front page of all the papers for being 60 today? No.
Monday.
But, it's on Monday,
it's
that's
next
why.
week, isn't it? But while you're
I do find that sometimes her big events don't get a lot of coverage, but they're actually really meaningful, important
And
events.
she's an incredible source of support to Catherine, it appears, to the
They're
President.
so close to each other.
Very good, mate.
It's really nice to see,
Yeah, and it's nice to see you as well. Thanks. Charlotte Griffiths there. Now, Rachel Reeves might be breathing a sigh of temporary relief this morning as the inflation figures have dropped ever so slightly.
Yeah, they dipped from they've dipped to 2.5% from 2.6%. It's being attributed to hotel prices falling and tobacco cost season, which means the cost of people's food is still going up.
Let's get more on this with economics professor at King's College, Jonathan Portis. Morning, Jonathan.
Good morning.
Good morning. Can we take much heart from these reduced inflation figures?
This is 1 month's data and it's a very small drop. So I don't think it really changes the big picture very much at all. It may calm down some of the really, quite frankly, hysterical and silly coverage of the markets over the last week. But in economic terms, it doesn't really change anything very much.
The market, do you think the headlines about turmoil in the markets, Jonathan, are exaggerated?
They're complete nonsense. There hasn't been any turmoil in the markets. What's happened is that bond prices have fallen, market interest rates have gone up, and that's been driven mostly, not exclusively, but pretty much by what's happening in the US and by what the US markets are doing in reaction to what they perceive the impacts of Trump's economic policies to be. Trump's economic policies, higher tariffs, tax cuts, and deportations are expected by the markets to lead to a stronger dollar and higher US interest rates. And UK interest rates have basically followed UK interest rates have basically followed US interest rates. The gap between US and UK interest rates is basically unchanged on what it was a year or 18 months ago. It really hasn't moved. So the idea that there's some sort of crisis in UK markets, frankly, is for the birds.
Should we benefit, do you think, from Trump's economic policy in America? I'm thinking particularly maybe with oil prices might start to come down and we might see the benefit of that in our bills.
It's possible that there might be some downward pressure on energy prices, which certainly would be good for the UK. But broadly, I think, unfortunately, that the main impact of US economic policy on UK economic policy is through interest rates, because in the global markets, we are a small country, like it or not. And higher US interest rates means higher UK interest rates by and large. It has done for most of the last 20 years. And that clearly isn't good. And I sort of say, there's good news and bad news. The good news for the UK economy that this is not a Liz Truss moment. It's nothing like it. It is not a home-generated crisis. The bad news is, of course, we could sort out the Liz Truss crisis. And we did sort it out by sacking Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng and restoring some sanity. People talking about sacking Rachel Reeves or not, whatever you think of Rachel Reeves, changing the Chancellor is going to make no difference to what happens to US interest rates and hence relatively little difference to what happens to UK interest rates.
All right, that's Jonathan Portis, Professor at King's College. Thanks for joining us. So, I mean, if American interest rates go up, our interest rates go up, that's your higher mortgage. And that's higher inflation.
But you see, what I'm concerned about here is I'm still saying we have no stimulus for growth.
No.
For employers, particularly. They don't increasing national insurance.
Well, that's a disaster.
Tax rises are going to have to come in the next 6 months.
There's a survey by the Chamber of Commerce showing that most retailers are predicting higher prices and fewer hours for staff because they've got to pay all this extra national insurance. Which also, not only has that national insurance rate gone up, it's kicking in at £5,000, not £9,500.
But we have some control over our interest rates. Like, she has to sit down with the Bank of England. You've got to think and say, work with me here. I know there's that level of independence now from the government, but help us bring these interest rates down so that we can get the stimulus going. Apparently, she's got no fiscal headroom anymore.
No, but don't worry, they're going to reform the planning system. That's going to change everything, apparently. Good luck with that.
Won't make any difference because no one can afford to buy a house. Right, up next is not just wildfires targeting homes in Los Angeles. You will not believe what is also happening now. We're going to be discussing that with Stephen Pound and Mike Parry. Don't go anywhere.
Statler and Waldorf.
GB News Breakfast. every day from 6 a.m.
Look, if people want to do veganuary, that's all well and good, but it shouldn't be forced on people, should it? Or even strongly suggested by something like the NHS?
It's not being forced on anybody. People can choose in the Wirral or any other NH trust that gets involved whether they want to partake or not. What they're doing are promoting the benefits of a vegan diet. Now, you imagine you're the NHS trust. You've got one person dying every 3 minutes from heart disease, and vegans get much less high blood pressure, much less heart disease than do meat eaters. So surely, if your job is to promote health, then you should let people know these kind of stats. Vegans get less cancer. Red meat is a class 1 carcinogen, classed by the World Health Organization as processed meat definitely causes cancer of the bowel. So it's just letting people know what the health advantages are of reducing or taking meat completely out of your diet and becoming vegan. You get less diabetes type 2, which is a big problem in the UK, less deaths from stroke, and around 1/5 less of all cancers. Imagine it was drugs that had that kind of impact. People would be hailing it and going, wow, this is amazing.
You know, to call it about diversity and inclusion, I just think that's a load of nonsense. This is a move away by public bodies from this compulsory veganism. Look, your speaker from Viva, which is a very hardline animal rights organisation, attempts to talk about the environment and other issues, but really this to them is about animal rights. They don't believe in a world where we should use animals. I completely disagree with the speaker. I respect her right to say that, of course, but I completely disagree. And that's why the NHS and public bodies just shouldn't be getting involved in things that are so controversial.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is the nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's 10:22 with me and Andrew. What's scandalous, you two? Are you allowed to say?
Chagos
Island deal.
Let's get it signed off before Trump gets it. He doesn't want it.
Absolute outrage. Absolute outrage. And Stephen obviously agrees because he's come dressed as an undertaker today, as you'll...
Oh, sorry, this is my second best waistcoat. No, look, the answer is perfectly simple at the Chagos Islands. Donald Trump is very keen to buy Greenland. He's very keen to take Panama. Buy the Chagos Islands. Well, aren't we selling the Chagos Islands? Well, hang on a second. It's not down to us. You know, no, we're not.
He's not in the position to buy them yet.
We actually moved the inhabitants off the Chagos Islands. The Tamdale used to raise
billions to take this territory, which is... Yes, we are. We're paying them 7 years in advance, which is about half the money
that
they've taken off the pensioners. It's an absolute scandal.
Before Rambulan took over...
Say shut up. It's a discussion. I know, it's very aggressive, isn't it? Very aggressive. 7 years' worth of instalments up front worth 630 million quid. I mean, this is outrageous.
Over 30 years.
We could give...
For the Diplomat General, David Lammy.
Yeah, absolutely. And all apparently on the altar of decolonisation. But hang on, the Mauritians never owned it, don't want it, we've got to pay them to take it. What about the Chagosians? Shouldn't we have given it back to them?
Mike, as ever, you speak with sanity, good sense and temperance, and I always admire and respect your words. But the majority of Chagosians actually live in Crawley, as a matter of fact. So if they bought them, if Donald Trump bought the Chagos Islands, then the Chagosians could go back there, because at the moment, if they go back there, an independent Chagos Islands, except for Diego
Diego Garcia, what would they live on? What would they earn? There's no trade, there's no industry, there's no agriculture. So that's the answer. Yeah. You actually go down to Crawley, and I'm amazed that you haven't actually done it, Bev. Done a Vox Pop down there and said to the Chagosians, what do you want?
Well, if they don't live on the Chagos Islands, I don't care.
No, exactly.
We moved them out of there.
Yeah, but Stephen, you're a patriot.
We have some responsibility.
You've served in the Royal Navy. Surely it offends you greatly that a military base vital to Western interest for both the United Kingdom and the United States is being handed over to a country which is more allied to China.
Diego Garcia,
surely that worries you.
Diego Garcia was never on the table. I entirely agree. Strategically,
it will be in 99 years' time. I remember at one time people said Hong Kong. Oh, that's a long way off.
I know.
You know. Yeah, it's an absolute disgrace.
You can always renew a lease. Look, the reality is where it's located is where China is actually doing this new marine Silk Road. They're trying to go across the Pacific. You look at what they're building in Sri Lanka. They're building right the way across in East Africa. This would be a crucial part in that. Therefore, we've got to keep Diego Garcia. No question.
The suspicious thing is, why are Labour trying to push this through?
Decolonisation. So, because
of
our history.
No, my point is, they want to do this before Trump gets in on Monday.
Trump will cancel the deal. He will absolutely cancel the deal. If he doesn't do it through official ways, he will do it diplomatically by telling the British government this is a very bad idea.
Bev has asked a key question, and the answer is purely and simply that the British government forcibly removed the Chagosians from their homeland. We did that. We have a moral duty and a legal duty.
How many years ago was that, Mike? Sorry, Stephen.
1963, is that right?
Right.
Wow.
This is being rushed through, and you know when deals are rushed, they're a bad deal.
Exactly. It's not the Dangerous Dogs Act.
Exactly. The Dangerous Dogs Act.
It's the fact that it is clearly...
Legislate in haste, repent at leisure.
Yeah, but also it's just the fact that it's clearly political. So if Labour are trying to get rid of this, get rid of the Chagos Islands, get rid of... I mean,
nobody'd ever heard of the Chagosian Islands before David Lammy became Foreign Secretary.
I'm sorry, Tam Diel used to raise it at PMQs every single week.
How is this going to do anything to improve the so-called special relationship? We've got a new president taking over on Monday. He really doesn't want this to happen, and Starmer is busting a gut
to get it done.
A bad deal to get it done.
So he's deliberately trying to upset the President of the United States of America, deliberately.
The whole American
and I mean, next Monday, Trump gets sworn in. He's absolutely anxious to push it through before then. It will be a bad deal. But it also, what a way to kick off our relations with the new President of the United States by literally insulting him by pushing through a deal he's made clear he does not want.
To be honest, it's a fairly low bar anyway at the present time, but I shall be watching the village people there at the inauguration of President Trump.
Beverly Turner's going to be
I'm there.
Are you?
I'm there on Monday.
Not brilliant. Village people. Not with the village people.
Sorry.
We heard her singing the other day.
Sorry, for 1 minute I had this image.
I won't be on stage
because only one of the village people is still alive, the original village people. So I thought we were recasting. I mean, this is a gender-neutral village people.
I went to Trump's inauguration, Bill Clinton's. I went to Bill Clinton's first one and then joined Mr Clinton's mother at the party with Fleetwood Mac that night.
Wow.
Fleetwood Mac with a group there.
She still talks about it.
It's going to be amazing on Monday. GB News will be bringing you...
So you're actually in Washington for the inauguration?
I go to Washington tomorrow. This is the last time you'll see me until I'm freezing on Monday.
I'm not because
I outside broadcast.
I entirely agree. Outside broadcast in Whitehall, but I have to say the nation needs you, Bev.
I think so too, Stephen. But thank you. Don't put any pressure on me. Now let's move to this story in LA. We trailed it before the break. These houses. I mean, the area that has been razed to
Pacific
the ground. Stephen, it's phenomenal. And now what's happening? They're being looted.
Well, as you know,
people dressed up as firemen.
That's so sick.
People dressing up as firemen, going around the ruins and stealing from houses that've got things left.
Wow.
But I think one of the basic. I mean, I have to say, Donald Trump saying that all the LA firefighters are lesbians called Christian. I think is not particularly helpful.
I don't think you put it quite as bluntly as that.
But
he certainly those are his very words.
You know why he's making that point, though?
It's because of the ghastly mayor of Los Angeles.
But also the head of the fire service. So there's been a huge sort of focus upon DEI, diversity and inclusion, about identity politics. They spent a lot of money on all of that, whilst failing to provide firefighting infrastructure.
And cutting budgets. They cut the budget for the firefighters, but up the budget for all the diversity programmes, including stopping sorting out brushwood across California, which is one of the main reasons it spreads so quickly if you don't clear the brushwood.
And the mayor who authorised the money extra money for diversity. We have to make the point she's an openly proud, out gay black woman. Of course she is.
What's interesting, though, is that the fact that looters always, you shot them. You know, people looted, they get shot. Simple as. And I don't know where that stands in the law at the present time. But what fascinates me about this, I always thought that when you...
Hang on, what are you talking about?
We don't shoot them in this country.
What do you mean?
When we had the riots in London 10, 12 years ago, we didn't shoot Liverpool.
Said our compassionate left-winger.
No, it's the only language they understand.
Is this Labour Party policy? I didn't spot it in the manifesto.
No, not loot the shooters, shoot the looters.
Well, maybe we should consider that.
When the Totnes riots happened, if they'd have shot the looters, there'd only be half the people in Liverpool left. I mean, you know, with no disrespect to Liverpool, of course. That was many years ago.
Worst crime imaginable.
I'm sorry. When you've got a situation of civil crisis like this, then you have to take emergency measures. But what's extraordinary, the thing, there's people now, the only thing that's left is their vaults and their safes where they're going around. But what I didn't realise was that I thought you could actually scoop up seawater and dump it on that. I hadn't realised that if you did that, the salt would then kill the land.
It does. And it would also... So short-term, you put the fire out, the huge long-term damage.
And it also destroys the actual equipment you're using. So they have to actually go up to the lakes and scoop up...
35,000 acres have been levelled. It's a huge area.
And the fires are still going.
Yeah, they are.
And if the winds start...
Have you ever been to Pacific Palisades?
No.
I mean, it is the most luxurious suburb in the world.
Yeah.
I mean, I know you get these places in Dubai and all that, but for where people actually live day in, day out, the gated mansions, and it's just so well... It's the wealthiest part of the wealthiest city and the wealthiest state in the world.
Which is why the insurance bill is going to be hundreds of billions of pounds.
Yes.
Well, I don't know how you can actually rebuild after that in order. I mean, I know Malibu, I know Pacific... I've looked at it enviously from outside.
Well, they can't rebuild with all the wood. Because a lot of these properties...
I know, they were, because wood was very, very cheap at the time.
We know it was always set to be a smart city by 2028, this as well. So where you get in and out with your phone. Made that a lot easier. Now it's been levelled to the ground. They might have had objections to that. And of course, it's the Olympics in 2028. So all I'm saying is there are some people who will be delighted about this turn of events.
Yeah, but what's extraordinary is if you know Los Angeles... Los Angeles is
because they can push through the smart city that is the future, where we're all going to be able to get in and out, but only with your phone.
There's even talk now they're going to cancel the Oscars because they think it'd be inappropriate. I think don't they need something like that to...
But the Grammys and the Oscars are actually on Hollywood Boulevard, which is quite a long way. But the odd thing about Los Angeles, it's 20 suburbs, basically, in search of a city.
It is. It's not a city, is it?
It's nowhere near. I mean,
there is a Los Angeles City. It's tiny. It's a tiny enclave.
Yeah, no, but it's like, I mean, Johannesburg, which is lots of small places, only encompassed by sort of electoral register. So the point is, a lot of, Watts and South Central and northern Los Angeles is completely untouched by this. So the question is, how do they rebuild? As for your point about the smart city, I was amazed when I was there, the number of driverless cars buzzing around. Sometimes the majority, and also little robot delivery things going.
It's going to become the...
Somebody will use it as a blank slate to start from.
Convenient, isn't it?
Elon Musk.
It is the blank
Let's not
slate.
imply
No, it's not Elon Musk. It is going to be the blank state, the blank slate, to become the digital state. And guess what? Just in time for the Olympics to showcase how marvellous this all is, and then we'll all have to do the same thing.
But they will do it, the Americans, because they're so used to rebuilding communities. Usually, when they've been destroyed by hurricanes or something like that, they just rebuild them. I said to a guy once, "Why do you live in Florida when you've lost your house twice in 10 years?" He said, "Apart from the hurricanes, it's the best place in the world to live." They just have this attitude, a pioneering attitude. We've been destroyed. We're going to rebuild and bring it back. They'll bring it back better than it was.
So people living on the San Andreas Fault, which is one of the most dangerous fault lines, and actually living on top of what could be an active flipping
And we will bring you two back in the next hour, despite the inherent danger of having you here.
Yes.
Right, lots more to come.
It's been many years since a woman said that to me.
We're asking, are Brits work shy? Someone who isn't. It's Sophia Wensler, and here she is with your news.
Bev, Andrew, thank you. Your headlines at 10:32. UK inflation has unexpectedly dropped to 2.5% in December, easing pressure on the Chancellor. Economists had expected it to remain unchanged at 2.6%. It's after rising energy bills and wages have contributed to inflation ticking up again in recent months. Rachel Reeves, who has faced criticism following recent market turmoil, responded to the 2.5% figure, saying there is still more to be done and pledged to fight every day to deliver growth and improve living standards in every part of the UK. But Shadow Chancellor Mel Stride told GB News Rachel Reeves must get a grip on the economy.
I don't know about the future of Rachel Reeves. That's in the hands of the Prime Minister. But what I do know is that she's got to get a grip of this economy. You know, we've seen growth killed stone dead. We've seen a government that's taxed the living daylights out of businesses. We have seen, even though inflation's come off a little bit this morning, high inflation above target. And you put all those things together with the moves that there have been in the bond market, and you've got an economy that's in a very precarious situation, and she really needs to get a grip, particularly on how she's going to start generating growth.
Meanwhile, the Chief Secretary to the Treasury, Darren Jones, says he and the Prime Minister have complete faith in the Chancellor.
I have confidence, of course, in the Chancellor, as does the Prime Minister. She returned from China this week doing trade deals for UK businesses and gave a statement to the House of Commons yesterday. And we're getting on with the work that we were elected to do by bringing change to this country, starting with economic and political stability and, yes, having to take the tough decisions in order to clear up the mess that we inherited from the Conservative Party.
In other news now, South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol has been arrested after attempting to impose martial law. He's the first ever incumbent South Korean president to be arrested. More than 3,000 police officers arrived to detain him as Yoon submitted himself to questioning in a bid to avoid any violence. However, he claims his arrest is illegal and is now refusing to talk, according to the investigation office. He is still technically the president, as a constitutional court has to decide whether his impeachment is valid. And back in the UK, women and their partners should be given paid time off work if they experience a miscarriage, according to a report from MPs. Currently, only those who lose a child or a baby after 24 weeks are entitled to 2 weeks of paid leave. But the Women and Equalities Committee is calling for the upcoming Employment Rights Bill to extend this to all pregnancy loss. An estimated 1 in 5 pregnancies end before 24 weeks, with as many as 20% ending in the first 12 weeks, known as early miscarriage. Those are the latest GB News headlines. More in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Crash Law 24 sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
And here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound will buy you $1.2218 and €1.1852. The price of gold is £2,197 and 59 pence per ounce. And the FTSE 100's at 8,259 points.
Crash Law 24 sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
Hello, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Quite a cloudy start for many of us, likely to see some fog in places, but it is going to brighten up across many northern areas. But in the northwest, this is where it's going to be particularly breezy. We'll also see some cloud starting to feed in here, also some outbreaks of rain and drizzle just starting to creep into the far north of Scotland. But as I say, plenty of sunshine likely across parts of Northern Ireland, Scotland, also northern parts of England and Wales. But that cloud likely to stick around across parts of the south and southeast, where it could be quite low and murky at times. Temperatures widely above average for the time of year, particularly in the northwest where it's going to be particularly mild, but perhaps feeling just a touch cooler across the southeast under those cloudier skies. To end the day then, once again, still plenty of cloud in the northwest of Scotland. Those outbreaks of rain and drizzle starting to move slightly further inland here, but elsewhere there should be plenty of clear spells to end the day. Fairly similar across Northern Ireland, northern parts of England, perhaps some patchy cloud, but once again there should be plenty of clear spells here. Once again, that cloud likely to linger across the far south and southeast, but a few clearer spells developing across parts of Wales to end the day. Then through the course of the night, we'll see fairly similar conditions. Once again, a fair amount of low cloud, particularly across parts of England and Wales, likely to see some frost in places. But where we see those clearer skies, likely to further north, that's where it's going to turn chillier here, likely to see a few patches of frost through the early hours of Thursday. So a chilly night under clearer skies, but under that cloud staying fairly mild overnight too, particularly in the northwest. Then through Thursday, once again, lots of cloud around to start the day. Similarly, across the south and southeast, lots of low cloud, murky conditions, even some fog in places. Once again, brightening up across parts of the north, seeing plenty of sunshine here, also to the lee of high ground, and still fairly mild for the time of year. But across the south and southeast, temperatures returning to around average for the time of year. Bye-bye.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. The M42 in Worcestershire is partly blocked northbound by an accident between junctions 2 and 3 from Alchurch to Redditch, causing delays. On the M5 in Bristol, there are 2 lanes closed northbound, along with the exit at junction 17 for the Cribbs Causeway. After a vehicle caught fire, there are long delays. The queues might be on junction 19 at Portishead, taking well over an hour, and there are long delays on a number of other nearby roads. On the M1 in Bedfordshire, there's a lane closed southbound at junction 10 at Luton Airport, where a lorry's broken down, with queues from junction 11A north of Dunstable. On the M1 in London, 2 lanes are closed southbound after an accident between junctions 2 and 1 from the A1 to the North Circular, causing queues. And on the M25 from Kent into Surrey, it's taking over an hour in 11 miles of queues from junction 5 for the M26 to 6 at Godstone after an accident earlier. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Very good morning. Thank you for joining us on Britain's Newsroom. Andrew and Bev here until midday. Now, the co-founder of the Brewdog Beer Company has said that Britain is one of the least work-orientated countries in the world.
Funny that. James Watt suggested that people should end their obsession with work-life balance and instead believe you should love your job and integrate it into your day-to-day life.
So we are asking this morning, are Brits work shy? And we're joined in the studio by businessman and entrepreneur Mike Green, who believes that most or too many British people are work shy, and digital communications manager at the Adam Smith Institute, Seb Charlton, who believes that they are not. OK, let's start with you, Mike. What's gone wrong with this next generation, or has Britain always been a bit lazy?
No, I don't think it has. I think it is a change, and certainly I was looking at some reports, and I'm a researcher by heart in my background, and so I was looking at some data. Since 2008, our approach to work has changed. And if we look at it, I think if there was a spectrum of duty to work and fulfilment, because it's not just about fulfilment, that is something we all want, we should strive for, we should try and find the jobs that give us that. But also there's a duty to pay our way in the country, and there's a duty to support the country. And if you look back over time, that spectrum has shifted from duty after the Second World War to rebuild the country right through to it being all about fulfilment. Well, sometimes we can't always have what we want. We have to earn, and then we can evolve our way in towards that fulfilment piece. But, you know, last night, I'd said about coming on here, and literally I got an email through from a wine shop that we sign up to, and it was saying they're going to have to be shut today because staff shortages. God. So the shop can't even trade because they can't get the people to work. So it breaks my heart to say I think we are more work shy and it's getting worse, but that's what I believe at this moment in time.
So let's bring you in here. I'm just looking at the figures. In the UK last year, 10.8 million people, that's 11 million, aged 16 to 64, were economically inactive. Yeah. Lazy, swinging the lead. Why? I mean, that proves the point. We have become work shy, Seb, surely.
So I think you've actually made a lot of good points there. I just don't think this is a result of Brits being inherently work shy. Yeah, I think we have a system that encourages people to not work. So it's 3 million people are currently on sickness benefits, and that's up 1 million in 5 years. We've also seen, since the pandemic, sickness benefits for mental health double. Okay, so we have a system that's made it that it's much, much easier for people to not work than get into work. But I don't think that's a case of Brits being inherently work shy. You know, we're the country of the Industrial Revolution. We've contributed so much to human civilization. I think we just need to rethink our system so it's more of a trampoline to get people into work, rather than a kind of permanent safety net that traps people in unemployment.
But isn't the fact that actually what's happening is people, the work shy, are exploiting that stupid system, which enables them to be better off on benefits, not going to work and being economically inactive?
Well, and, you know, I've had this debate a lot of times with people that says the problem is the gap between not working and low income is too close. We should be paying much more to those on low income. And people say, well, how's that going to be funded? Well, if it was government funded, it would come from the same funding that is having to pay for them not to work. But if the gap was bigger, there'd be more of a motivation. Motivation isn't always positive. Sometimes it's a negative push. But it is wrong that people who are choosing not to work can be almost as comfortable as the people who are on the lowest incomes. And, you know, I was thinking about the saying of, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. But that's not just country, it's community, it's family, it's household. And all too often, a young MP was speaking to me a few months ago and said, Mike, I'd love to meet with you and tell you what companies need to do to attract people to want to work for them. And I think, well, I can understand that. And it was a welcome debate, but the fact that we're even having this question that says you've got to do this if I'm going to come and work for you, as opposed to I need a job, I want a job, I've got to pay my way, I want to pay my way, so I'm going to get a job and then I'm going to try and improve my lot as I'm in that job. But there is this expectation that it's all got to be perfect for me and my needs before I'm going to give you my time. And I just think that's an imbalance.
Yeah. Gentlemen, we've run out of time. I'm so sorry. Seb Charlton there from the Adam Smith Institute and also Mike Green, who is an entrepreneur. We could have done that for longer, but no doubt we'll pick it up another day. It's PMQs, of course, today, so lots more to come. But we've now got to go to the top European holiday destinations weather.
I forecast a perfect holiday in the sun.
Weather looking good then?
For sure, and no worries about our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Storm Felix is set to affect central parts of the Mediterranean, bringing some rain, mountain snow and also strong winds. But further west, largely settled for the Canary Islands, Madeira, Portugal and also most of Spain. But towards the eastern coast, we could see some heavy showers here. The heaviest likely across Sicily and parts of Sardinia, and also likely to see some mountain snow across the highest parts of Italy and also Greece. Towards the weekend, though, largely settled and temperatures remaining around the same.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Figures released by the National Child Measurement Programme in 2024 found that almost 1 in 10 children was obese in the first year of school. Children living in deprived areas are twice as likely to be overweight as those in more affluent parts. Organisations like the Prepped Foundation are educating youngsters about healthy eating by giving them the skills to create balanced meals. TV chef James Golding has joined the foundation as the head of food education, and he joins me now to talk about the work. James, lovely to see you here.
Good to see you too. So Prepped used to be Table Talk Foundation, and it's now obviously Prep for Life, Prep for Knowledge. It's basically a charity to encourage kids to have a better understanding of food, but at the same time enjoy cooking and hopefully make better food choices in their life, as well as perhaps, you know, share the information we give them with their families.
Do you see them developing an understanding of the difference between healthy and unhealthy food?
Yes, I think that, you know, kids tend to sort of be taught a lot of this in school, but being able to actually ask questions to a chef and be able to cook with produce which they know is one, that is going to be tasty because they've tasted it, but two, open their eyes to food that they may not have tried before. I think that, you know, I think a lot of kids say they don't want to try stuff because they don't like the way it looks, but the way that we produce our sessions, you know, we encourage the kids to try, and I think it really does open their eyes. It's very easy, I think, currently to be able to make easier choices, say fast food choices or you know, that type of thing, and it's obviously giving people the ability to make the right choices, but also the skills to be able to do it. So I think it's something that needs to be addressed and something that really needs to be pushed, and that's what we're doing as a charity.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Thank you, Britain.
Thank you for watching.
Thank you for listening.
Thanks for subscribing.
Thank you for your support.
It's you that make us the People's Channel.
As we reflect on our journey so far, we're filled with immense gratitude.
You mean the world to us. We couldn't have reached this point without you.
As a very special thank you, we are giving you the chance to win one of 50 GB News thank you boxes. They're worth £50 each.
For full terms and conditions, and to enter, just go to gbnews.com/thank you.
.48, this is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Today is National Pothole Day.
I like a pothole story.
It's a bit of a gimmick, but the cost of fixing potholes, or the cost of them, last year hit a record £579 million. That's being spent by the AA on fixing vehicles damaged by potholes.
Unbelievable.
But that's not including what councils are spending on fixing them.
Yeah, they are apparently spending an extra £500 million, £500 million on local road maintenance in England, bringing the total to £1.6 billion in 25 to 26.
And frankly, that is nothing like enough.
It's nothing like enough. How can it be so difficult to fix holes in the roads? We'll have a listen to what Mr Pothole, a.k.a. Mark Morell, had to say to GB News today.
Over the 12 years, I've campaigned and studied every aspect about potholes. I'm afraid I'm going to have to retire now because of family health issues. So I've got to give my commitment to those nearest to me. And the other thing is, I've got no faith in government and politicians to do anything about the roads. I'm not seeing any improvement.
I just think that is so sad. And honestly, Mark, our hearts go out to you in terms of your family illness as well. But to feel that he's defeated, you can just see he's just like, this is never going to get better. Imagine lying awake at night and knowing about all the potholes that you want to fix and you can't fix them.
It must feel like herding cats. And the fact is, I know there's a terrible pothole near where I live. They fix it twice a year because they don't fix it properly.
Exactly. Well, let's find out what's happening. Let's talk to the Executive Director of the National Motorcyclist Council, Craig Carey-Clinch now. Morning, Craig. What is happening? Because it feels like one pothole gets fixed and then half a week later or so, there's another one or the same one needs fixing again.
Well, it's really sad to hear that Mr Pothole is retiring. I mean, he's done so much to actually raise the whole awareness of the issue and really sort of made people's minds focus on it all. So he'll be a great loss to the overall campaign to fix Britain's roads, I think. But the Pothole Partnership started a year or so ago to really try and draw more attention and to persuade government to do some proper funding. But on the basis of repairs being permanent, actually done properly and precisely to a cost-effective price. So temporary repairs being something we've got to try and avoid because you just keep coming back again and again and spending the cash. And also ensuring that monies are ring-fenced and there's proper reporting of what's actually going on. So the previous administration did pledge a lot of cash. However, they backloaded it, so we wouldn't have actually seen much of it up front. The current government has pledged £1.6 billion. That's welcome. It's the start of things, but we need a lot more focus on it, and the areas of the pledge that we put out a year ago do need to be actually fulfilled properly.
Craig, it's bad enough if a car hits a bad pothole. What's it like if you're on a motorbike?
Well, this is the thing. If you're riding a bicycle or riding a motorcycle, real shared issues between these two modes of transport. What could be a wheel damage on a car or a suspension issue could actually be a serious injury or even, very sadly, a loss of life, particularly if you've got to swerve from it. Another thing also, when it's dark or it's really wet, potholes filled with water, you can't see them. So, there are serious hazards to people who ride motorcycles and bicycles.
And do you think that that's been taken seriously enough by the councils or Department of Transport? I mean, who is responsible for potholes in government? I'm not sure.
Well, I mean, the Roads Department, the DFT, yes, but if you look at what goes on at local authorities, there's all these different asset management strategies. I think 78 different types of ones. So there's a lot of confusion, a lot of wastage, a lack of coordination, actual proper coordination across different authorities and within them. It's a case of sorting the system out, getting people to take responsibility and investing in those permanent repairs. The sort of thing that the JCB Pothole Pro does, for example, where once it's done, it's done. You're not back in 6 or 9 months' time having to repair the thing again.
Mark, do you know how much it costs per pothole to fill in? Oh, sorry, Craig. Do you know how much it costs per pothole?
So if you're looking at reactive filling of potholes, we're looking at about £73.50 roughly per pothole. If you do it permanently with the proper kit, you're looking at about 50 quid, but that will last forever. Well, not forever, but it'll last for a considerable length of time as opposed to just a temporary repair. So you multiply that by what's needed to be done, and you're talking about, 16 billion or something to fix Britain's roads? So what the government's pledging is only the start. We need this repeated year after year. We need much more commitment, both centrally and local government, to spend the cash properly.
And the trouble is, Craig, the figure is so woefully below what is needed. As fast as they're repairing with the 1.6 billion, more and more are opening up and getting bigger and bigger. I mean, some of them are not potholes; they're craters.
Well, it's one of those things where it does seem like trying to paint the Forth Bridge when the Forth Bridge is 2 times as long as it is now. But at least we're making a start on it. The AA reported a very minimal reduction in the number of incidents. Yes, it's a starting place. I think, as a partnership called it, sort of like maybe sunlight at the end of the tunnel. But as you rightly point out, this is a huge problem, and it keeps replicating itself. So there has to be that commitment, because this is really about road safety. It's about the future of transport, which we hear a lot from the government about. It's about saving lives.
OK, thank you, Craig Carey-Lynch there from the Motorcyclist Council.
As you know, I'm on
the day that Mark Morell retires, Mr.
As
Potter.
I'm on a back of motorbike a lot. Potholes are bad.
Yeah, they are. Right, don't go anywhere. This is Britain's Newsroom. See you in a bit.
A chilly start will give way to a lovely, warm afternoon. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. After a foggy start, it's set to remain quite dull and cloudy for some parts of the south and southeast. Brighter in the north, though that's away from the far northwest, where we're likely to see some outbreaks of rain and drizzle. That's all because of this frontal system slowly moving its way in here, and a good squeeze in the ice bars too, so breezier here too. But largely high pressure dominating, which means lots of fine and settled weather, even some sunshine poking through that cloud across Northern Ireland, parts of Scotland, northern parts of England and Wales too. But as I say, likely to remain fairly cloudy across parts of the southeast, fairly grey at times too. And then just this outbreaks of rain and drizzle starting to creep into the far northwest later in the day. But for most, quite a mild day on offer. Temperatures widely above average for the time of year. To finish off the day, once again, there should be plenty of clear spells, particularly across Scotland. Away from the northwest, though, breezier here, plenty more cloud and some outbreaks of rain and drizzle just starting to creep into the very far northwest. Perhaps a bit more cloud across western parts of Northern Ireland too. Some patchy cloud around northern parts of England, but otherwise plenty of clear spells across Wales too. But that cloud's set to linger across parts of the southeast too. And overnight, once again, likely to turn rather murky, likely to see once again some foggy conditions develop overnight too, but there should also be some clear spells to the north of this, and once again those outbreaks of rain and drizzle set to continue across the far north of Scotland. Under those clearer spells too, temperatures likely to dip away, so once again a quite chilly night on offer, but temperatures largely holding up across parts of the southeast underneath those cloudier skies. Then through the course of Thursday, once again quite a dull start across central and southern parts of the UK, brightening up once again mainly across northern parts of England and Wales, perhaps a bit more cloud as we head into tomorrow across Scotland. But once again, temperatures fairly mild for the time of year, but feeling slightly cooler across central and southern areas tomorrow. Bye for now.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Don't miss your chance to win our biggest cash prize ever. An incredible £50,000. That's tax-free cash to spend on anything you like this year. What would you spend it on? £50,000 could buy those treats you've always dreamed of having. And just one entry into the Great British Giveaway really could make £50,000 cash all yours. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Patrick Christie's Tonight. Weekdays from 9 p.m.
5 years ago today, Harry and Meghan shocked the world when they announced that they were stepping back from royal life in what has since been dubbed Megxit. Many royal experts thought the future of the royal family was in doubt after the Duke and Duchess of Sussex's bombshell Oprah Winfrey interview, their scornful Netflix documentary and Harry's autobiography Spare that took aim at William and Catherine. Pleased to be joined now by entertainment and royal journalist Sarah Louise Robertson. Sarah, thank you very, very much. Great to have you on the show. So, Megxit, 5 years on, how's it gone for them?
It couldn't have gone any worse. I remember, as you pointed out there, Patrick, 5 years ago, one senior courtier called this move a declaration of war on the royal family. Well, this is a war that Meghan Markle and Prince Harry have lost. They are the losers in this whole sordid affair. And the royal family have come out stronger, more unified and better than ever. You know, she had it all in her hands to play with. It was all there to play with. She had the HRH title. She could have gone on to do wonderful things. And what's she now? A reality star. She's not even a working actress anymore. This new cookery show, Netflix have put it in the reality side of their categories. What a come down that is. We don't see them together in public anymore. She's doing her thing. She's going down the avenue of reality TV. And Harry's trying, I think, to do some of his charity work.
I still think that if he held his hands up and some things happened, that maybe the British public
He'd
would.
have to beg his brother. He'd have to beg his brother. The sticking point here is Prince William. Charles, yes, misses his son. I will say that again. He does.
GB News, the People's Channel.
$11 a.m. on Wednesday, the 15th of January, live across the UK. This is Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner.
So, a little relief for Rachel Reeves as inflation figures fall slightly this morning. Can the Chancellor now bounce back?
And the figures are stable. The markets are functioning in a normal way. So absolutely, I have confidence, of course, in the Chancellor, as does the Prime Minister.
A royal recovery, an uplifting update as the Princess of Wales reveals she's in remission, and we're so thrilled for that. And she's also the new patron of the hospital which treated her.
And it's back to the White House with inauguration plans in full swing. Melania Trump has shared her new insight into what to expect from Trump 2.0.
But this time I have everything. I have the plans, I could move in, I already packed, I already selected the furniture that needs to go in.
Can you be fat and fit? Obesity experts are throwing aside their BMI charts as it's revealed more than 15 million Brits are apparently being wrongly labelled overweight.
And the overweight ones probably aren't being labelled. Now, take the spirit out of flying. This is calls from Ryanair boss to limit you lot at home to only 2 drinks at the airport. This is in a bid to curb badly behaved drunk passengers.
And speaking of flights, what do you make of this? We think you might approve.
If I hear one more remark from anybody, I will be ringing the pilots. They will be getting the police, and you'll not be having a Christmas.
I love her. That's like me at bedtime. If I hear one more word. Oh, it's fantastic.
And that's to her boyfriend.
GBNews.com/YourSay to let us know your thoughts this morning. And the Melania Trump stuff, it's a brilliant interview.
Yeah,
Fox
and
News in America.
people will mock her because they say she's going on. But First Ladies, they are decorative. There's no doubt about it. And she looked stunning at the last inauguration, and I bet she will again.
Yeah, it's going to be a huge day on Monday. I'm going tomorrow.
She's going to be there.
I'm going to be there for
I'm
GB
very
News.
envious. I've never been to an inauguration in a President of the United States.
Well, it's going to be an incredible spectacle, and you must join us on Monday. I might even do some exclusive filming just for you, Andrew, at Britain's Newsroom.
Just for our viewers
For our
and
viewers at
listeners.
home. Yeah, that's what I mean.
Who, by the way, are still listening to us in ever-increasing numbers.
Yeah.
We're always grateful. Thank you for that.
We really are. Right, Sophia's here with your news.
Bev, Andrew, thank you. It's just gone 11 o'clock. These are your headlines.
UK inflation has unexpectedly dropped to 2.5% in December, easing pressure on the Chancellor. Economists had expected it to remain unchanged at 2.6%. It's after rising energy bills and wages have contributed to inflation ticking up again in recent months. Rachel Reeves, who has faced criticism following recent market turmoil, responded to the 2.5% figure, saying there is still more to be done and pledged to fight every day to deliver growth and improve living standards in every part of the UK. But Shadow Chancellor Mel Stride told GB News Rachel Reeves must get a grip on the economy.
I don't know about the future of Rachel Reeves. That's in the hands of the Prime Minister. But what I do know is that she's got to get a grip of this economy. You know, we've seen growth killed stone dead. We've seen a government that's taxed the living daylights out of businesses. We have seen, even though inflation's come off a little bit this morning, high inflation above target. And you put all those things together with the moves that there have been in the bond market, and you've got an economy that's in a very precarious situation. And she really needs to get a grip, particularly on how she's going to start generating growth.
Meanwhile, the Chief Secretary to the Treasury, Darren Jones, says he and the Prime Minister have complete faith in the Chancellor.
I have confidence, of course, in the Chancellor, as does the Prime Minister. She returned from China this week doing trade deals for UK businesses and gave a statement to the House of Commons yesterday. And we're getting on with the work that we were elected to do by bringing change to this country, starting with economic and political stability and, yes, having to take the tough decisions in order to clear up the mess that we inherited from the Conservative Party.
Now, South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol has been arrested after attempting to impose martial law. He is the first ever incumbent South Korean president to be arrested. More than 3,000 police officers arrived to detain him as Yoon submitted himself to questioning in a bid to avoid any violence. However, he claims his arrest is illegal and is now refusing to talk, according to the investigation office. He is still technically the president, as a constitutional court has to decide whether his impeachment is valid. Now, some breaking news. The death of a 2-year-old boy after a medical episode at a children's nursery is being investigated by police. Merseyside Police said the incident was reported at the Early Learners Day Nursery on Hawthorne Road in Bootle at about 12:35 p.m. yesterday. The boy was taken to hospital by paramedics but sadly died, and his family is being supported. An investigation has now been launched to establish the full circumstances and cause of death. A father accused of murdering his 14-year-old daughter by stabbing her in the heart claimed that they had been play fighting while dinner was being prepared. A court heard how 50-year-old Simon Vickers denies the murder and manslaughter of his daughter Scarlett in the kitchen of their home in Darlington on the 5th of July last year. He told police who arrived at the scene that they had been playing 1 minute and next minute the blood was gushing from her chest. The prosecution's case was that this was not an accident, jurors heard. Gerry Adams could be in line for taxpayer-funded compensation because of Sir Keir Starmer's human rights plans, senior peers have warned. The former Sinn Féin leader is set to benefit from a decision by the government to repeal Troubles legislation. The current law blocks his claim from compensation over his detention in prison in the 1970s for suspected involvement in terrorism. But Sir Keir's plan will reverse this. It's after the Northern Irish High Court ruled that the legislation was incompatible with human rights laws. And the government is expected to revive laws protecting free speech at universities following a backlash, according to reports. The Higher Education Freedom of Speech Act, which could have seen universities fined for failing to uphold freedom of speech, was passed under the previous Conservative government in 2023. But the Education Secretary shelved the free speech laws last July, just days before they were due to come into force, in one of her first moves in government. However, it's now understood Bridget Phillipson is poised to bring back the Act in a watered-down version in the coming weeks, following widespread fury from academics. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now it's back to Andrew and Bev.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Andrew and Bev.
Well, let's see what we've been saying and hearing at home. I've got to read this one out, actually. Bev can't really. This is from Michael, who says, "Will you marry me, Bev Turner?"
Thank you, Michael.
I think she's spoken for.
Well, I'm not married, Michael.
Oh. Right. Is he old enough to get married, your boyfriend?
But I am in love, so I'm afraid I'm off the market, Michael. Thank you. You can talk. You've got a young boyfriend as well, don't you? Start giving me a hard time. I'm blushing now. Did you see that?
He's in his 50s.
Mine isn't.
Right.
Now, listen, you've not... But what's been a bit of a strange day, because we've got loads of emails coming in today.
Yeah.
That's nice. Thank you for sending your emails in.
People are very proud about the fat stuff, aren't they?
Yeah, and Leslie said, I work from 15 till 65, now no winter fuel allowance. This is about whether British people are lazy and have no work ethic. Carol says the youth of today have absolutely no incentive to work, low wages, no chance of ever becoming a homeowner. Everything has been taken away from them. Instead of encouraging the young to work, the government have removed all hopes for their future. I know what you mean, Carol.
Yeah, no, your mic, there's a few issues with your mic, Bev, so I'm just going to say a lot of you still getting in touch about the, frankly, outrageous plan by this Labour government to give compensation to Gerry Adams because he was banged up in a prison in Northern Ireland during the 70s because he was the godfather of IRA terrorism. Just to remind you, the IRA were responsible for more than 1,700 deaths. Rob says the only compensation Gerry Adams should be getting involved in is paying it out to everyone he was directly or indirectly involved in killing or maiming. Gordon says the lunatics have taken over the asylum. And David says, is this government deliberately trying to alienate every person in the UK? Lots more on this.
Yeah.
And also people are talking about food. Eileen says we need to be more aware of our food content. The sugar content of many of the seemingly innocent foods is unbelievable. I never look at the labels.
But you also never you don't overeat and you stop when you're full. And we've got a whole generation of teenagers who, frankly, never feel hungry.
No.
They're never hungry. They never stopped eating. They never stop eating. They have snacks.
They snack between. That's the difference to when I was growing up. Well, there was no money to snack.
Yeah. Well, there was this idea that you had to keep your blood sugar level, but actually now the wisdom on this is that a little bit of fasting in the day is a good thing.
Absolutely. Now, Washington, D.C. is buzzing as President-elect Donald Trump gears up for the inauguration on Monday. The country music star Carrie Underwood, got to admit I've never heard of her, is set to perform along with this long-time Trump favourite. If you can't sing.
I know we try every day, don't I? But you keep shutting me up. Now, Melania Trump, though, is preparing to the White House. There's a noticeable absentee. Guess who's not going to be at the inauguration?
That's fascinating. The former First Lady Michelle Obama, who also was not at Jimmy Carter's state funeral because she'd have had to have sat next to Donald Trump.
She's sulking. Let's talk to Republican commentator Lee Cohen, who joins us from Florida. Morning, Lee.
Good morning.
Morning.
Bev, I understand you're coming over next week and that you're unmarried. I'm unmarried too. I'm looking forward to meeting you.
This isn't a dating show, Lee, actually.
Lee, I'll be very happy for you to show me and my boyfriend around Washington if you're there on Monday. I'd love to meet you over the weekend. But listen, Michelle Obama isn't going to be there. Sure. Why?
Well, very interesting. And as you noted, she also did not attend President Carter's funeral. And it very well could be because she couldn't bear to be basking in the glow and the gravitational pull of Donald Trump, even though the funeral wasn't his event. But also interesting is there will be no Keir Starmer at the event, although there will be notables, including Nigel Farage, your own Nigel Farage, and Nigel Farage MP, who will be leading one of the most exciting and coveted events during the inaugural week.
It's also Lee, also Peter Mandelson, Lord Mandelson, who's a veteran Labour fixer here, former Labour cabinet minister, he's going to be the next ambassador in Washington. He's not going either. Now, can we read anything into this? Because we know that Trump was very vexed by the fact that the Labour Party here, the Labour government sent out 100 party members to campaign for Kamala Harris. There was a complaint made to a congressional court by Trump's campaign team. Is this a sign that Trump's still irked with Labour?
Well, we don't know. We don't know if an invitation was actually issued, although if it was, it's difficult to imagine that the incoming ambassador would not want to attend. But certainly you're absolutely right that there could be a lot of friction between the new ambassador, who, like other members of Starmer's cabinet, have made unforgivable remarks against Donald Trump's character. So not only that, there likely will be a clash of values with Mr. Mandelson, the Dark Lord of the Blair era, representing the values of Blair and the European Union, rather than the direction, the strong Atlanticist direction, confident and full of promise that Donald Trump is.
What
ushering.
what do we expect on Monday? It's more than just a political event. It's a show, isn't it?
Absolutely. Bev, I'm so excited that you're coming, because January 2025 is the day America presses reset on a new era of prosperity and power. And this isn't just a transition of presidents, it's the rebirth of the American spirit. With President Trump back in the White House, America will restore its respect in the world under the leadership of a man who has rewritten the rule book. And that's already, of course, in motion even before he takes the new oath. So, Bev, this isn't a normal inauguration. It's not just about ceremony. It's going to be a call to action, although there will be ceremony. And as you mentioned, there will be great fanfare, YMCA with the Village People and many celebrities. The first inauguration didn't have as many celebrities because now it seems the hatred of Donald Trump in the celebrity quarters has been whisked away.
Yeah, very true. And particularly after the wildfires as well, actually. Lots of reports online of people who previously were Democrats are now saying, let's just get Trump in, because the Gavin Newsom in LA has just basically let down the people in that area. Lee, I'll buy you a beer over the weekend. I will see you in DC. Thank you so much.
Looking forward
there. Thank you. Yeah, it's going to be really exciting.
How many women do you think have admitted to using weight loss injections? Not this one. Find out next.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Underestimate what you did, because to do it in their backyard as well, I bet they weren't happy about it, were they, Brad?
No, definitely not. Well, it makes it all the more sweeter. So they're usually pretty dominant in a two-man event, but four-man's usually where we can challenge them. And yeah, we managed to do it yesterday and put down 2 solid runs. And yeah.
So yeah, funding was a big issue for us in the last quad, but because of our results recently, we've picked up a lot more funding from UK Sport. So we're well funded now, and but yeah, the Bob is in the back of the van behind us, so we're driving it down to St Moritz as we speak. So yeah, it's, that's how it all works in the background in bobsleigh.
Brad, you're the pilot, correct? So you're up front.
Yeah.
Now, what happens? I always wonder, because I remember seeing John Noakes on. Do you remember John Noakes on Blue Peter when he fell out of the Bob and he ended up showing the back of his backside on TV because he had a big scar on there? So you've got the brake man. You're at the front. So where are you then, Aaron? Are you what number are you?
So I'm number 3. Yeah.
Right. So what do you do there? Is it just a matter of it's the running power is what it's all about to get off to a good start, and then you can sit and enjoy the ride?
Yeah, that's it. So for number 2 and myself, number 3, it's all about getting that bob off the line and then just zipping it up to as high a speed as we can, basically. Getting in, staying low, having good aerodynamics and staying still and let Brad do the work.
Yeah, it's definitely not a comfortable position for them because we're bending them and twisting them into quite an uncomfortable position to get as aerodynamic as possible. And when you've got 6 times G's pushing you through that is not... Yeah, not
definitely
fun.
stiff back this morning, that's for sure.
Because I'm just thinking where me and Eamon would sit. Is it 2 and 3, or would he go at number 4? What do you fancy?
I would be too frightened to do that.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom on GB News. Right, we said to you before the break, how many women in this country do you think use weight loss injections?
You don't, I can tell you that.
Oh, well, it's not easy.
You're down the gym every morning.
I'm not. I wish I was down the gym every morning. The thing is, for me, I did so much sport when I was young. Yeah. I did so much swimming as a teenager and when I was young. I just kind of have... I just sort of have the basis, so I'm very fortunate. And I know genetically I'm probably quite fortunate as well. But 10% of women in this country are using weight loss injections. That's a huge number.
Hang on a second. What that means is 90% of the women in this country aren't.
But 10%, that's quite a lot, Mike.
Yes, but I tend to side with Stephen on this. I think the statistics are the wrong way around. I mean, you wouldn't get me sticking needles in myself just to lose weight. Maybe it's because I don't have any great vanity and don't wish to look any lighter than I am. But I think it's horrendous because we know that some of these things they're sticking into them have been bought on the internet.
Yeah, that's
they're not even proven. You know, if you were going to go to your doctor and get a prescription, maybe fair enough. But I've seen some friends of mine who've got into this. One female friend in particular, I was utterly shocked when I saw her. Skin hanging off her face, her clothes didn't fit her anymore.
Muscle goes.
Honestly, and she was a lady of a certain age, 60 plus, and I didn't want to say anything to upset her, but she looked awful. I wish she'd never done it.
And the trouble is, of course, they use the injection, but
I was just going to say,
switch off now, wherever you are.
Exactly. The problem is, as you say, with all that loose muscle flopping around, then you've got to generate some way of making that part of your body again, not just hanging off you. It's horrendous, you know.
It's also, I mean, if it's on prescription, this is costing the NHS quite a lot of money.
Oh, it bankrupt the NHS.
There's virtually all of the Ozempic and Wegovy and Mounjaro, that is actually done privately. I always thought Wegovy was an attack on Michael Gove, but I mean... Let's talk about this wretched football manager.
This is amazing.
Yes. God rest his soul. He's wretched football manager.
The late Sven-Göran Eriksson, who presumably, Mike, died with millions in the bank.
Well,
no.
He got paid over 22 million by the English FA. He was the highest paid manager in the world at the time, $4.5 million a year.
But when he managed England?
When he managed England. And that was some years ago now. That was an extreme... I mean, some managers now get 20 million a year, but that's because of the explosion of money in the game in Saudi Arabia, right?
Paid jobs before that.
Exactly. But the problem is, when footballers earn all this money, predators come along and try and take it off them. And he got involved in a scheme which was all about making films, and huge production companies were allegedly involved. I won't name them.
It was a tax rebate scam.
A tax rebate scam. But it went so badly wrong that not only were they told to repay the money they put into the scheme, they were told to pay money that they would have made profits on had the scheme worked out, and it didn't. It collapsed. And in Sven's case, he owes £7.2 million to HMRC in this country, even though he moved back to Sweden. If he hadn't sadly died when he did, he'd have to have flogged his house anyway as a down payment to the HMRC.
Do you think how many hip operations that is?
So hang on, does that mean then that his family are left nothing after such a successful career?
His family are left with a huge debt to HMRC because his liabilities only add up to about 3.8 million. He's got a bill of 7 million. But I know another footballer, a footballer friend of mine, who's a very prominent Premier League footballer. He got involved in exactly the same scheme and recently has had to sell his £6 million home to pay off a £2.4 million debt to HMRC from the same scheme.
We were asked to go in that scheme.
Right.
Because I used to be married to a sportsman.
Oh, right, of course, of course.
But luckily, his dad is an accountant.
Yes.
And he went, don't go anywhere near it.
I met Sven Göran Eriksson a couple of times when he was with Farrier Alarm, and they're a lovely couple. And I remember that lovely story about him coming up to an England footballer by the swimming pool with a bottle of champagne at 11 o'clock in the morning. And he said, well, what are we celebrating? He said, life.
Yeah.
Right.
I thought he was a sweet man.
I'm sorry, I'm horrified that he's owed this money to the taxman, because that's money that could be properly spent.
Oh, absolutely.
He was feckless and reckless. And these are they just stupid? Do they really think it's money?
Well, they do because these shops.
There's no such thing as a free lunch.
These sharp-suited, financial advisors come along. I do know at one point his debt was £10 million. Okay, so even before he died, he'd managed to pay a bit of it off, but he just hasn't got the resources.
But Mike, look at the footballers who are earning £1 million a month.
Well, some footballers in the world are now earning £1 million a week in Saudi Arabia. It is mad, yeah.
Now, would you retire if you were making £1 million a week? Probably not. But apparently, if you do retire, it helps to be moderately drunk most of the time to avoid depression.
Yeah.
That's the best news I've heard.
Fabulous.
I totally repudiate this. I like being massively intoxicated. And certainly when I retire, that is exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going down the pub every day. I'm going to get moderately intoxicated and then go home and get somebody to make my dinner.
So
That's what I'm going to do.
Moderately intoxicated? Lightweight.
And when you're moderately intoxicated and somebody makes your dinner, will you then have a drink with your dinner?
Well, a mate of mine, actually, who's in this position, he goes to the pub and he has about 4 or 5 pints at lunchtime. Beautiful country pub in Surrey. Yeah. And then somebody comes and picks him up. He goes home. His wife cooks him a delicious dinner with which he has a bottle of Chateau Neuf du Pape, right? Nice. Followed by a couple of brandies while he settles down to watch TV in the evening. That's
followed by a divorce lawyer, I would have thought.
What does his wife get out of that?
Sorry.
But that's an alcoholic. Like, that's not healthy.
It's not, because I've never seen him drunk. I mean, this is steady drinking from about 11:30. He would now be over 60.
You could probably use his liver to sole your shoes with. But the reality is, what they're saying there, do you remember that lovely French lady who lived to be 105, having a couple of glasses of red wine a day?
Yes.
Yeah.
And you constantly hear about this. A little wine for thy stomach's sake, stomach's sake, as it says in the Bible.
Stomach's sake?
For thy stomach's sake.
Yeah.
Because in the original Aramaic, it sounded better than that.
It did, yeah. No, it's very nice. But no, a little bit of everything, right?
Yeah.
A little
of what you fancy does you good. Should we do that? A little of what you fancy?
Absolutely.
Don't encourage me to say.
I took to red wine on the excuse that, well, I've got a heart problem.
Yes.
And everybody always tells you. So I cut out the white wine because I found it a bit too acidic. Yeah, acidic. But the red wine, lovely. Absolutely no problem at all. And I like red meat, so that goes nice steak or spaghetti.
But not 5 pints as well?
No. Oh, no. No, I'd cut off at 4.
It does sound like quite a nice life, I can't lie. But talking of booze, let's just quickly talk on this. Ryanair saying that we shouldn't all have more than 2 drinks at an airport. Yeah. How do you police that?
Oh, come on. Are you going to actually have somebody, the booze fuzz?
Breathalyse you as you get on the plane.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, I'm not a great believer in these sort of conspiracy theories, but I think Ryanair probably want to flog the booze on the plane.
Of course they do. I mean, Michael O'Leary's a brilliant businessman and
a brilliant publicist.
A brilliant publicist, but where he's made an awful lot of his money are the extras, aren't they, on Ryanair planes? You know what I mean?
Breaking news. Just stay with us, gentlemen. Chris Cope's got some breaking news on this Chagos Islands deal. Chris, please don't tell us the deal's been done.
Of course it won't be.
Andrew and Bear, the deal has not been done. The Cabinet has met in Mauritius this morning in Port Louis. A statement just released from the Mauritius government says this: the Attorney General from Mauritius will travel again this evening, that's Wednesday, to try and carry on talks in London. Upon his return, the Cabinet will be apprised of the situation. So no deal on the issue of handing over sovereignty of the Chagos Islands to Mauritius as things stand. More talks in London expected now tomorrow and Friday. The deadline for this, of course, is Tuesday next week, when Donald Trump becomes president. He is thought to be against it, according to people who speak for Donald Trump. So the clock is ticking, but as things stand, no deal on handing over sovereignty of the Chagos Islands.
They're trying to screw us for more money.
They've just got to keep it going. And just before we go, thank you, Chris. We will keep you posted, of course, on that issue. Stephen Pound, I want to just quickly mention Princess of Wales and Royal Marsden, because you have a connection.
Yeah, well, no, my wife was the chief nurse practitioner at the Marsden, because she did her postgrad in oncology at the Marsden. But I have to say, some good news. Wasn't it absolutely marvellous and wonderful to see this elegant, gracious, gentle lady
quite agree,
thanking all the staff in the NHS? It's been a pretty miserable few weeks.
Going around shaking hands with the patients.
I know.
Making them feel better about
I have to say,
themselves.
you know, I'm not a natural royalist, but on the other hand, I'm not a Republican. And I have to say, that actually does restore your faith. There's a marvellous good news story.
I totally agree. I was in hospital for 7 months waiting for a heart transplant, and it's a very lonely place. You know what I mean? It can be. You can feel cut off from the world and nobody cares and all that.
Had Kate known that you were there, she would have been there.
Exactly. It will have done an enormous amount of good to those people.
Some great news.
If you're watching, Mum, well done.
Yeah, so we're going to the break with a little bit of light-hearted and good news. So that is marvellous.
And inflation's down.
And inflation, well, don't take much credit for that, because no one spent any money at Christmas because they didn't have any. Right, can you be fat and fit? We're going to be discussing that next. Don't go anywhere. Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. After a foggy start, it's set to remain quite dull and cloudy for some parts of the south and southeast. Brighter in the north, though that's away from the far northwest where we're likely to see some outbreaks of rain and drizzle. That's all because of this frontal system slowly moving its way in here, and a good squeeze in the ice bars too, so breezier here too. But largely high pressure dominating, which means lots of fine and settled weather, even some sunshine poking through that cloud across Northern Ireland, parts of Scotland, northern parts of England and Wales too. But as I say, likely to remain fairly cloudy across parts of the southeast, fairly grey at times too. And then just this outbreaks of rain and drizzle starting to creep into the far northwest later in the day. But for most, quite a mild day on offer. Temperatures widely above average for the time of year. To finish off the day, once again, there should be plenty of clear spells, particularly across Scotland. Away from the northwest, though, breezier here, plenty more cloud and some outbreaks of rain and drizzle just starting to creep into the very far northwest. Perhaps a bit more cloud across western parts of Northern Ireland too. Some patchy cloud around northern parts of England, but otherwise plenty of clear spells across Wales too. But that cloud's set to linger across parts of the southeast too. And overnight, once again, likely to turn rather murky, likely to see once again some foggy conditions develop overnight too, but there should also be some clear spells to the north of this, and once again those outbreaks of rain and drizzle set to continue across the far north of Scotland. Under those clearer spells too, temperatures likely to dip away, so once again a quite chilly night on offer, but temperatures largely holding up across parts of the southeast underneath those cloudier skies. Then through the course of Thursday, once again quite a dull start across central and southern parts of the UK, brightening up once again mainly across northern parts of England and Wales, perhaps a bit more cloud as we head into tomorrow across Scotland. But once again, temperatures fairly mild for the time of year, but feeling slightly cooler across central and southern areas tomorrow. Bye for now.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Thank you, Britain.
Thank you for watching.
Thank you for listening.
Thanks for subscribing.
Thank you for your support.
It's you that make us the People's Channel.
As we reflect on our journey so far, we're filled with immense gratitude.
You mean the world to us. We couldn't have reached this point without you.
As a very special thank you, we are giving you the chance to win one of 50 GB News thank you boxes. They're worth £50 each.
For full terms and conditions, and to enter, just go to gbnews.com/thank you.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Bev until midday. Of course, it is PMQs at midday, as always. It's Tom Harwood and Gloria Di Piero, and they want your question for the Prime Minister.
Send them into gbnews.com/your say. Now, though, we're going to get the latest headlines with Sophia Wensler.
Bev, Andrew, thank you. Your headlines at 11:32. UK inflation has unexpectedly dropped to 2.5% in December, easing pressure on the Chancellor. Economists had expected it to remain unchanged at 2.6%. It's after rising energy bills and wages have contributed to inflation ticking up again in recent months. Rachel Reeves, who has faced criticism following recent market turmoil, responded to the figure, saying there is still more to be done and pledged to fight every day to deliver growth and improve living standards in every part of the UK. But Shadow Chancellor Mel Stride told GB News Rachel Reeves must get a grip on the economy.
I don't know about the future of Rachel Reeves. That's in the hands of the Prime Minister. But what I do know is that she's got to get a grip of this economy. You know, we've seen growth killed stone dead. We've seen a government that's taxed the living daylights out of businesses. We have seen, even though inflation's come off a little bit this morning, high inflation above target. And you put all those things together with the moves that there have been in the bond market, and you've got an economy that's in a very precarious situation, and she really needs to get a grip, particularly on how she's going to start generating growth.
Meanwhile, the Chief Secretary to the Treasury, Darren Jones, says he and the Prime Minister have complete faith in the Chancellor.
I have confidence, of course, in the Chancellor, as does the Prime Minister. She returned from China this week doing trade deals for UK businesses and gave a statement to the House of Commons yesterday. And we're getting on with the work that we were elected to do by bringing change to this country, starting with economic and political stability and, yes, having to take the tough decisions in order to clear up the mess that we inherited from the Conservative Party.
The death of a 2-year-old boy after a medical episode at a children's nursery is being investigated by police. Merseyside Police said the incident was reported at the Early Learners Day nursery on Hawthorne Road in Bootle at 12:35 p.m. yesterday. The boy was taken to hospital by paramedics but sadly died, and his family is being supported. An investigation has now been launched to establish the full circumstances and cause of death. Now to that breaking news. There has been no deal reached on the Chagos Islands following a cabinet meeting. The Attorney General of Mauritius will travel again to London to continue talks to reach an agreement. It comes after Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer agreed a deal with the previous Mauritian government to give away the Indian Ocean archipelago, which has been British for 200 years. Under the pact, the UK taxpayer would pay Mauritius a reported £9 billion over 99 years to lease back Diego Garcia, the site of a key US airbase. Those are the latest GB News headlines. More in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Crash Law 24 sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
And here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound will buy you $1.2229 and €1.1860. The price of gold is £2,197 and 71 pence per ounce. And the FTSE 100's at 8,262 points.
Crash Law 24 sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
11:36, Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Bev.
So obesity experts want to throw away the BMI charts, which have governed our weight for years and years, because they say it's possible to be fat and thin fat and fit at the same time.
So scientists have said that over 15 million Brits who've been told they are overweight are actually perfectly healthy.
So that's what's resulting in this proposed overhaul, how obesity is diagnosed. So you can count. We're asking this: can you be fat and fit at the same time?
Let's talk to friend of the show, brilliant former presenter of Fat Family, Steve Miller. Morning, Steve. It's always great to see you and just put this topic in a kind of mass of common sense here. So, can you be fat and also fit?
And you are right, it's about using common sense. Can you be fat and fit? So it all depends on your definition of fit. Is it, can a fat person run a marathon? Yes. Can a fat person run 100 meters and beat me in the race? Yes. But can you be fat and healthy? That is a different discussion. So my view is very straightforward, is that yes, you can be fat and fit. And we're playing with words here. But can you be fat and healthy? And the answer is no, you can't. And the evidence is clear that if you are too fat, you are putting yourself at risk. So one study, for example, at Birmingham University, they found that obese people were 96% more likely to have heart failure than someone that isn't obese. Research in Spain showed that people that are obese are 4 times more likely to have diabetes. Yeah. So what I would say to people is, yes, of course you can be fat. You can be a porker and run, and run very well. But can you be a porker and live then a long time? Then that's debatable. What concerns me with this sort of thing, though, is that when we start talking about this, it unnerves doctors, because doctors are now thinking probably, oh, you know, I've got to be careful with my language here a bit more. Whereas what they should be saying, we should be empowering our GPs to say to fat people, you're too fat, sort it out, otherwise you're on death row. But we've got to be more blunt. And in this country, we just like political correctness. One very quick other thing before Andrew comes in is that also, if this is true from a political angle, well, Keir Starmer can shelve giving the fat jabs out, can't he?
I was just going to say, I like the idea, Steve, that you use the word fat, because a lot of us are told we can't.
Oh, I don't listen to any of that cobblers. I mean, you know, if you know, the word fat isn't going to hurt you, but being fat potentially will hurt you a lot. And all of the research, all of the what I call the proper medics will support me on that. There is a linkage between lots of things. If you're fat, your heart can suffer. If you're fat, you're more likely to get dementia. The list goes on and on. So the message to the country, I think, is yes, you can be fat and fit, but you cannot be fat and healthy.
OK, Steve, always great to see you. Steve Miller, so we're short on time. Right, lots more to come, but of course it's PMQs today. Let's have a quick look, though, at the European weather.
I forecast a perfect holiday in the sun.
Weather looking good, then?
For sure, and no worries about our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Storm Felix is set to affect central parts of the Mediterranean, bringing some rain, mountain snow and also strong winds. But further west, largely settled for the Canary Islands, Madeira, Portugal and also most of Spain. But towards the eastern coast, we could see some heavy showers here. The heaviest likely across Sicily and parts of Sardinia, and also likely to see some mountain snow across the highest parts of Italy and also Greece. Towards the weekend, though, largely settled and temperatures remaining around the same.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Lauren, let's start with this, shall we? How children's TV may be harming, not helping young minds.
Yeah, so this is an article in the Express today, a big double-page spread as a result of some new research in a new book that's coming out by a child psychologist, saying that children's television, and I think perhaps more importantly, the way that children consume television and video product now is perhaps not as healthy for them as we would hope it would be, and there's quite some distance from children's television of the past, of the sort of the Bagpuss and Clangers and Ivor the Engine era. And I think what's interesting about this is particularly the how children's television is consumed angle, because children are now put in front of screens significantly more often than they were certainly when I think we were growing up. The content that they are consuming is not great for their brains and their learning and development, which Floella Benjamin of children's television fame is now leading a big crusade to say that some of this is really, really bad for children.
These days, they're not watching the TV that we all watched when we were growing up. They're not even watching GB News in the morning.
What are they thinking?
Would you believe it? But they are watching this absolute drivel all day long on YouTube, and because obviously all our TVs are now connected to the internet, or they're getting TikTok on their TV. It's not even, so they don't even necessarily have to have smartphones or iPads. They can just watch this stuff on TV, and it is rubbish. They are watching it and they're obsessed with it. Oh, God, Skibbity Toilet or something. Have you heard of this?
No.
No? Well, you'll have viewers who have got who are parents of sort of 13-year-olds, and this Skibbity Toilet thing is... They're all obsessed with it, and this is a really annoying sort of theme tune or thing that they sing at you.
GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
PMQs, it's Wednesday. Tom Harwood and Gloria De Piero are there for us in Westminster. Morning both. What are we going to expect today?
Fireworks as ever.
Oh, I think so.
It's a weekly bare-knuckle fighting of politics, isn't it?
Yeah, and have you seen a poll that has come out just this morning that puts not one, not two, but 3 political parties all on 25 points apiece? This is a poll from More in Common, Reform, Labour and the Tories, all neck and neck. It was a really bear fight, all to play for.
And, of course, after the joust, we will have a Conservative MP and a Labour MP answering your questions, whether you're listening or whether you're watching. Get sending them in, watch with us, tell us your name, where you're from, and we can put those questions to our Conservative and government spokesperson.
Absolutely, and do remember where you come from as well. We love saying where in the country, or actually outside the country as well. It's great that there are so many people watching all around the world, because PMQs is such an international phenomenon. But while you're here, Bev and Andrew, well, Bev, let's start with you. What would you ask the Prime Minister today?
Oh, you put me on the spot there, Tom. I didn't know we were going to have this conversation. I would probably say to him something about the fact that it's the vaccine module and the COVID inquiry today. Is he going to stop them rolling these jabs out today?
And I would ask him, why did he ever make Tulip Siddiq the Minister for Anti-Corruption with all that controversy hanging over her head, and why did it take so long to boot her out the government?
I reckon that will definitely. I think that's a surefire one.
I think Andrew's one is probably going to come up.
So.
I think Bev, maybe yours might be a bit niche, but we'll see. I mean, I suppose. Yeah, I don't know if any MPs would ask that today. I mean, Andrew Bridgen is no longer a Member of Parliament, so probably not.
But you never know. Maybe Beverly needs to be in that House of Commons.
Maybe
she's
she
with
does.
us for now.
We'll have to watch from beginning to end to see if it does come up. But it will be a fascinating back and forth. Just the economic malaise, the fallout, of course, of the grooming stuff, and indeed this new polling that shows that all of these parties are neck and neck. It will be a fascinating one.
Get your questions in.
OK.
Cheers, you two.
Thank you, guys. They will be here from midday. Now, Dudley has become a newly formed constituency in the West Midlands.
In the 2024 general election, Dudley went back to Labour, who won with a 1900 majority, but with a turnout of just 51%. Very low.
Yeah, so what challenges are this new constituency facing?
Tell us more, it's our GB News reporter Jack Carson, who is in Dudley, which is, of course, right in the heart of the Black Country. Jack.
Well, as you mentioned, we're right in the heart of the Black Country. We're here on Dudley Market. You can see some lovely fruit and veg behind me if you fancy picking up a banana or a watermelon this morning. But you're right, it was a newly created constituency at the last election after being split into Dudley North and Dudley South. But what are the issues that this town is facing? That's what we're here today to try and find out. And Andrew Griffin is, he volunteers on a flower stall. He's a local campaigner as well. I mean, Andrew, tell me, what is the real thing that people here on Dudley High Street are talking about at the moment?
Car parking, simple as that. This town's really been suffering for about 2 years now with the metro and the bus station, because we've got ongoing works there. And Dudley Council decided September of last year to implement 1st of October car parking charges, and that really has impacted all the traders in Dudley. Everybody's noticed a fall off in footfall.
So is it people kind of staying away from the high street because of that newly increased charge?
Yeah, I mean, £1.80 to park for an hour in Dudley. If you compare that with other car parking charges in other towns, some towns are charging 50p for the first half an hour, £2.50, for instance, in some places for 4 hours parking. So I think they've got the pricing wrong.
And obviously as well, politically, this area is a strong Labour area. It was Conservative around the Brexit election, but went back to Labour this time. Do you see it staying as a Labour seat as we head into the next few years?
No, to be perfectly honest with you. A lot of people now, as we all know, are talking Reform Party. They're making inroads, and I think Tory and Labour are going to have a fight on their hands, locally and nationally.
All right, Andrew, thank you so much for giving us that insight this morning. As you mentioned there, it's a wonderful market here, but with that car parking, that is one of the things that is obviously stirring up a lot of anger within residents here, having to pay for those car parks, even just to come into the town centre here to do some shopping.
Thank you, Jack Carson. Only on GB News would you go from Trump's inauguration to the parking issue in Dudley. That is Gloria Di Piero in the studio. She's getting ready to do PMQs. Don't know where Tom Harwood's going. Probably gone to get his makeup done. Don't go anywhere. We're going to be there just a moment. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News. Dudley car parking. Who knew that could be so interesting?
Fascinating. Have you ever been to Dudley?
Just giving you a little time just to sit there and contemplate Dudley car parking.
My second job was the Birmingham Evening Mail, and I went to the Black Country. I could not believe the accent. It's very strong.
Very strong in Dudley.
And very nice and very distinctive.
Don't go anywhere, PMQs.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. After a foggy start, it's set to remain quite dull and cloudy for some parts of the south and southeast. Brighter in the north, though that's away from the far northwest, where we're likely to see some outbreaks of rain and drizzle. That's all because of this frontal system slowly moving its way in here, and a good squeeze in the ice bars too, so breezier here too. But largely high pressure dominating, which means lots of fine and settled weather, even some sunshine poking through that cloud across Northern Ireland, parts of Scotland, northern parts of England and Wales too. But as I say, likely to remain fairly cloudy across parts of the southeast, fairly grey at times too. And then just this outbreaks of rain and drizzle starting to creep into the far northwest later in the day. But for most, quite a mild day on offer, temperatures widely above average for the time of year. To finish off the day, once again, there should be plenty of clear spells, particularly across Scotland. Away from the northwest, though, breezier here, plenty more cloud and some outbreaks of rain and drizzle just starting to creep into the very far northwest. Perhaps a bit more cloud across western parts of Northern Ireland too. Some patchy cloud around northern parts of England, but otherwise plenty of clear spells across Wales too. But that cloud's set to linger across parts of the southeast too. And overnight, once again, likely to turn rather murky, likely to see once again some foggy conditions develop overnight too, but there should also be some clear spells to the north of this, and once again those outbreaks of rain and drizzle set to continue across the far north of Scotland. Under those clearer spells too, temperatures likely to dip away, so once again a quite chilly night on offer, but temperatures largely holding up across parts of the southeast underneath those cloudier skies. Then through the course of Thursday, once again quite a dull start across central and southern parts of the UK, brightening up once again mainly across northern parts of England and Wales, perhaps a bit more cloud as we head into tomorrow across Scotland. But once again, temperatures fairly mild for the time of year, but feeling slightly cooler across central and southern areas tomorrow. Bye for now.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
You could be joining the Great British Giveaway list of winners with your chance to grab a fantastic £50,000 in tax-free cash.
Hi, I'm Angela from Wigan and I won £30,000 with the Great British Giveaway. I'd say to people who want to enter or are wondering whether to enter to do it, it happens to people like me.
For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.co.uk gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Ironic article in The Guardian, Nick, caring about facts.
Yeah, this is Meta is ushering in a world without facts, says Nobel Peace Prize winner. And they just seem to give these Nobel Peace Prizes to anyone these days. So it's Maria Ressa.
Not working.
Zuckerberg came out, and it was very bold. He said a few things. We're going to use community notes instead of fact checkers. Fact checkers in inverted commas, because it just means people pushing usually a specific viewpoint. Community notes seems to be a great system that X uses, so why not do that? I think that's great. He's going to reduce restrictions on topics like immigration and gender. Good, because I'm against censorship. He's going to push back on governments around the world that are going after American companies and pushing to censor more, which is great. He's also moving content moderation to Texas instead of California, which is banter. So now the cynical version is he just realises we've got a new regime, it's the MAGA era, and I want to be mates with Trump, who said that I should that if I interfere with the 2024 election, he should spend the rest of his life in prison. So he did mention he might be a bit scared of that. He was involved in that in Facebook suppressing the Hunter Biden laptop scandal, and I feel that he didn't like being a part of all that from watching.
And also the suppression of arguments about gender and sex, what is biological sex and whatnot. You get banned for saying there are two sexes.
They're on the wrong side of this, and now he's correcting. But the weird thing is the people, of course, the people who don't like this, the lefties, this person, Ressa, is saying that this is a big problem. That it's an extremely dangerous time. I've seen all this from the lefties. They just call it disinformation. They're worried about this because to them it's disinformation. To other people it's information.
Yeah, and also, I mean, I think we can all agree if people think they're getting their facts just directly from Facebook, then something's horribly wrong. But we know that. The community notes thing, I think, is quite good because that's sort of first-hand experience people are putting down, aren't they?
Yeah. People have loads of different views come together, and it's an aggregate, so that's why it works.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Well, they're building up to Prime Minister's questions, which kicks off at 12 o'clock. And, of course, I think the Prime Minister is going to be on the defensive over his failure to get rid of Tulip Siddiq.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. Agriculture is really important.
Sooner. Quite interestingly, Bev, I was in Parliament last night, leaving Parliament.
Oh, we could have given him 20 minutes.
Yeah, we could easily.
We could have given him 20 minutes. I feel
There's
bad.
nothing so former as a former minister. Stripped of her entourage, stripped of her driver, no car, so she'd have had a government car taken everywhere for. She'd have been on the tube last night.
Saw her as she's doing the walk of shame, basically.
So she's only just a couple of hours ago quit as a minister, forced to quit, to be honest, after the ethics advisor, Laurie Magnus, effectively questioned her judgment and also said pity she couldn't identify quite the source of the house she was living in, where it came from. You think you might know?
But she keeps her seat as an MP.
She does.
Which is what's interesting. So she's not a minister anymore, but she remains the MP for that constituency. That doesn't feel right, does it? You feel like it should trigger a by-election.
Yeah, and she's my local MP, actually.
Oh.
She's MP for Hampton Highgate.
Was she pleased to see you?
No. I can honestly say she wasn't. I smiled sweetly, as you'd imagine I would. How are you? I was about to say minister, but of course she isn't. And she found a very convenient reason to keep walking.
Did she mumble anything under her breath, do you think? Do you think she recognised you?
I think she did. Interesting that just before...
Well, it was your newspaper yesterday, thinking about it. No wonder she didn't want to say hello and give you a high five.
The Mail broke the story about the investigation. Two lame ducks.
Two lame ducks was your front page with Rachel Reeves on one side, Tulip Siddiq on the other. I bet you're lucky she didn't wrestle you to the ground.
Well, she's only 5'1", so
You're
she might
not
have
much
struggled.
taller.
No, that's true. But quite interesting. The questions just before Prime Minister's questions are Northern Ireland questions. So Hilary Benn, the Northern Ireland Secretary, is going to be challenged, I hope, about the frankly outrageous decision of this government to change the rules to enable Jerry Adams, the godfather of terrorism in the IRA, to be paid compensation for when he was incarcerated in prison in the 1970s. for the good of people. So that presumably will have been coming up, and I think it will come up Prime Minister's questions today too.
And I do hope...
And it should.
I wonder if anybody will ask Keir Starmer, does he feel snubbed not to have been invited to the inauguration on Monday? Because he should, really. We have traditionally been the closest ally of America.
Yeah. Well,
he's not going to be there.
No, and Nors Manderson is the next ambassador. It's fascinating, isn't it? So it's going to be a